see. Hold up. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Tier Ranker Fights. This is episode number 35. This is the last in our series of our best movies of each decade for horror that we've been going through. So we started at the 2010s. We kind of worked our way back down. Now we're at the 70s, and then coming up soon near Halloween time, we're going to have a championship match that's going to be the top 10 from every episode. So we'll keep you posted on those details. But I'll go ahead and I'll introduce my panel for this evening. I'll start with my co-host for tonight. We got Austin Pez Howell. How's it going?
Yeah, we're going to find out our final 10 for that grand championship battle royale tonight. And talk about a decade with a lot of movies that helped define the genre of horror as we know it. So we're going to talk about a lot of those tonight. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then one of our returning guests who's been here through this whole thing is Mark Edward Hoyk. How's it going?
Hello, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark. hey.
Rise, my son, and go forth to bring me chicken wings.
Yes. Sounds about
Mark has been, we've called him our anchor for this whole series. He has been with us for every single one of them. We can't thank him enough for that and for his knowledge and helping me put together the lists and all that kind of
Have
stuff.
I done every single one?
Yes, you've been on every single one, sir.
It's
just you.
Yeah. It's a difficult responsibility.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, but we'll go ahead and introduce a second timer to the Tier Ranker Fights. Andres Gallegos, the Ghost. How's it going?
Darkness falls across the land.
Nice.
It's going great. It's going great, guys. How's it going?
Good. Yeah,
good to come back.
Yeah, and then our fifth and final guest for this evening, we have Matt, the killer horror critic. How's it going?
Hey guys, good to be here. Hard to follow Andres being a creeper there, but
yeah. Well, that's all right. So we'll just kind of jump right into this thing. So usually I've been a little busy this week. I'm going to throw up we have some rules, but and I usually have a little thumbnail prepared, but I'm going to throw it up for one of our other horror episodes because I do not have a thumbnail, but I do have the rules up. So I'm going to throw them up. That'll just put a little order to the chaos, but this is basically, let's see. Here we go. And let me get rid of this is for our 80s one. But yeah, the rules are as follows. Let's have a good, clean fight. Please do not talk or shout over each other. Please do be respectful of others' opinions. Each person will take turns to select a movie for ranking. The person who selects the movie will have 1 minute to explain which tier they think it should go in and why. All of the participants will then each have 1 minute to say whether they agree or disagree and may suggest a new ranking. The host will decide, the host being me, will decide on ranking that averages out everyone's opinion, and we can have a little debate at that time too, and then we'll just kind of ask it if the proposed ranking is acceptable for everyone, and then we'll go from there. So it's basically kind of some loose rules that we have just to keep it a little order to things. But
yeah, Matt's the only first timer we have here tonight. Yeah, we don't get to every single movie, just to let you know. We just, we usually get to about maybe 20, 25 if we're lucky, something like that. But yeah, everybody just nominates a movie when their turn is up, and you nominate it for a rank, and we talk about it and see who agrees and who disagrees, and we just kind of go around the horn and get to as many as we possibly can. And around the 2-hour mark or so, we'll kind of wrap it up with what we call like a Hail Mary round, but we've retooled that to save some time so that everybody can mention a few movies really quickly, and the ones that have crossovers, we just do a quick round of voting. So I'll explain that a little bit more when we get to it. But he's going to pull up the chart here, and when we get started, Matt will be first to go since he's the first timer.
Oh, geez.
He'll be the first one.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah.
I know, right? Well, you got a second while he scrolls down there.
Yeah, usually we just start at the bottom of the ladder of how it's displayed on the screen, just work our way up. So, but a couple other things to note is that so for anyone who's doing this for the first time or watching for the first time, we have S for superior, and then just like grades in school, A, B, C, D, F, and then there's a couple of slots here for like not a horror movie. There's a case to be made that maybe one of them might actually not be an actual horror movie, and then haven't seen. And usually we want to have 3 people on the panel that have seen it for it to be able to count. Since I've seen so few this time, I've only seen about 14, 15 on the actual list. We can make a little exception, and if at least 2 of you guys have seen it, it'll still count. So we can do that tonight. But and then also by the end of it, we want to have a top 10 plus 3 honorable mentions, meaning that we're only going to allow 10 movies to be in the S tier. All the rest of them can have as many as you want in each tier. So,
All right.
Yeah, I suspect it's not going to be so much a fight over S tier as it is going to be the A tier. But
yeah, I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think there's some very obvious S tiers that we'll throw in there pretty quickly, or that are very, very obvious. And yeah, we'll see what else makes it besides the few I'm thinking about. But I'm sure everybody's thinking about the same ones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, Matt. So if you want to just pick one, and then you have about a minute to talk about it, and then give it a ranking.
All right. Well, since it's my first one, I'm going to make it easy on myself and nominate Alien for S tier.
All right. Make it easy.
To me, Alien is a near perfect movie. There's one shot in the entire film that I wish I could cut. You all probably know the one with the sort of rubbery, obvious man in a suit moment. But no, other than that, I mean, this is the movie to me that defined sci-fi horror. I consider it actually to be one of Ridley Scott's best movies. I think that the alien itself is iconic. And I mean, it's just it's incredible when you consider that this movie actually came so close to not being made, or, ending up your kind of standard run-of-the-mill B-movie horror bin type of film. And it just got all the talent that it did, the backing that it did, and it's just kind of a lightning in a bottle film where everything just worked out perfectly. The effects, the set design, the actors. Sigourney Weaver is Ripley, a newcomer. So yeah, I don't know. I consider an S tier, but I'm curious if any of you guys feel differently about it.
Well, we'll find out. Andres, you're up. What do you think about Alien?
Oh, I mean, what can I not say about Alien? I mean, just so many great things about this film. I mean, Ridley Scott, this was him at his apex, I believe. It was part of his apex tier of films. And then also on top of that, just thinking about just the themes of sci-fi that this introduced, where it was about, I mean, when you really boil it down, it's kind of a rape and survival story. And like everything about this movie supports that in every capacity, even down to the fact that the alien, his head is a giant phallus, and it's so perfectly well thought out. And also on top of that, H.R. Giger's designs all over this film is genius. It is impeccable. It is haunting. It is terrifying. And since Alien in 1979, I don't think anybody has nailed that biomechanical look even better than H.R. Giger and Ridley Scott did in this film, apart from James Cameron, who did Aliens, but not kind of going on that front because it's more of a sequel more than anything else. But this defined alien horror for a generation, and it still this day is impeccable in so many respects. Also, it introduced us to freaking Sigourney Weaver, who's one of the most badass female characters of all time. So yes, S tier all the way.
Yeah. Mark,
is that 1 minute?
What do you think?
Okay,
Yeah.
I got. I'll throw 2 things. I cannot argue with S tier status on this. I think, in addition to what Andres brought up, this is an important movie for the fact that it brought sci-fi to the level of working class characters, because normally in sci-fi you always saw scientists and all the eggheads in space, and Ridley Scott literally said, these are space truckers. These are ordinary working class guys having to deal with something that's been dumped in their lap. And secondly, Kenner Toys, when they were already riding high with the Star Wars franchise, they started making toys from Alien and marketing them to not to little kids, but, to 13, 14-year-olds, because they knew, even though this movie was rated R, they were seeing this movie and it had this tremendous appeal that could not be denied. So it's a phenom, and hats off.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, I know you're huge on the Alien franchise, so what do you think?
Yeah, I'm big on the Alien franchise. Aliens is my favorite movie of all time. Does not mean I like Alien any less. I love Alien. It is space horror. When you think of space horror, you think of Alien. I mean, you're dealing with the problem of a creature killing people on the ship. You're also dealing with space problems because you can't just run off the ship and run somewhere to get away. You're in the middle of space. What are you going to do? We got to deal with the problem. I think it's genius the way the movie pivots from Tom Skerritt to Ridley Scott halfway through, because you think he's the strapping, good-looking hero, and it kind of pivots once he's gone into Sigourney Weaver. And like Mark was talking about, the fact that it's a bunch of blue-collar workers who their first concern when they're going off to do the side mission is, how much are we going to get paid for this? What's our hazard pay? We're going to get a bonus out of this, and that's the conversations I would be having if I was in that situation. So yeah, S tier. It is space horror. There is nothing like it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is one of the movies I have seen. So, and,
Excellent.
yeah, and Aliens is an awesome movie. I went into it expecting an action movie when I first saw it, because I watched the first Alien and the second one, the double feature. I was a little late to the party. I just saw them for the first time last year, actually. So I was way late to the party. So, but yeah, I absolutely love Aliens. Like I said, when I went in expecting an action movie, I got a really awesome horror movie with a tinge of some action in there. But yeah, it has all just like the creepy horror things with the creature. Especially the moment that got me was the little chest guy that burst out of the chest and just like took off. Like that moment really freaked me out. And then also solidifying Sigourney Weaver as probably the best action star of all time, in my opinion. Like I don't think anybody beats her. So yeah, I'm gonna say S tier all the way. I'll concur.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's a nice clean sweep for Alien, sitting top of the S tier. So there you go. We'll move on to Andres. What's going to be your first nomination, man? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Now I'm just going to choose a really weird one right off the bat, because I know probably not a lot of people have seen this one, but this one for me is just like one of those like really fun nostalgia movies. I'm going to go with The Car.
All right, now I got to find it here. The car on the front. If anyone sees it, let me know. It is
right above Last House right next to The Brood.
It's between The Brood and The Crazies.
He's got it.
Yeah,
there you go. All right. So, as much as I enjoy this film, I'm going to put it at the C tier, because it is one of those films that when you experienced it when you were younger, it's so fun. There's so much to really love about this movie. I mean, in terms of the Roger Corman style of filmmaking, about how cheap it was, and about the fact that it is about spoiler alert, it is about a demonic possessed car that is chasing people down. All right. It's the epitome of like the 1970s Roger Corman style of films. James Brolin is camping it up. I just really like it, but it's a film that doesn't really hold up nearly as well unless you've seen it. And for that reason, I'm going to put it at the C tier. But personally, in my heart, it's a B movie, but kind of breaking it down, it would kind of be in between. So yeah, that's kind of where I would put The Car at.
Well, okay. Good. Mark?
Well, the 70s are an era where we've designated C tiers for other decades, but for the 70s, C tier is still pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's address the fact that we had to make a list of 50, and we left so many things off. There's practically no Hammer. There's only one Amicus Omnibus. There's no blaxploitation. There's no Blackula. There's no Seven Brothers meets Dracula here. So there's a lot we had to leave off, and so that the car made the split is valid. And it's Universal ripping off their own movie. It's like, okay, Jaws is doing great, how do we do another one but different? And it's like, oh, let's make it with a car. And but yeah, it is big, goofy fun. I would almost take it up to B tier, but yeah, there is just a little too much to really give it that much class, but it's still a loads of fun.
Yeah. Austin, what do you think?
Well, Mark, the car was one of your suggestions, so I would hope you would have some kind of fun. So,
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched it because you put it on the list. So yes, I have seen the car, and I enjoy a good possessed car, killer car movie. I mean, I'm a fan of Maximum Overdrive, for as silly as it is. But here's the thing: Christine does it better, and John Carpenter doing Christine kind of does it better, takes it a little more seriously, but it doesn't mean the car wasn't fun. I think the C tier is kind of perfect for it. It's a fun little midnight movie. It's schlocky, it's silly, but it's fun in that goofy 70s way. I enjoy it. Like I like Killdozer, but that's a made-for-TV movie, so it's fine. Yeah, C tier seems perfectly fine. For C for car, I'm okay with that.
C for car.
Yeah, C for
right.
Yep. Yeah, Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think Jordan's seen it. I'm pretty sure he hasn't.
Y'all keep my comments pretty short, because I haven't seen it, but I have seen Christine, and if the car is even like a campy version of Christine, I'd be interested to see it. So it's definitely one on my radar, but I haven't seen it, so I'm going to refrain from giving any kind of ranking.
Okay,
Matt.
I actually think C level is perfect for it. I'll say C for camp because it's like just the right amount of camp. It's not perfect. It's not S tier, but it's a really fun movie. If I'm remembering correctly, because it has been a while, I think there's a moment where James Brolin goes up to the car and the door flips open and knocks him off his ass and rolling down a hill or something. So I mean, it just cracks me up. And I'm a sucker for killer car movies. Christine was actually my first horror film when I was 3 years old. And you're right, it is done better. That was John Carpenter and Stephen King together, so they are a little bit better of a combination. But yeah, the Wraith, all of them, they're all just really fun. I love these old classic car films before we started inserting, CGI cars into these movies. And just movies like this just have a nice classic sort of realistic action vibe to them that I really enjoy. And it's just a pure fun midnight camp movie.
Hey, the car had the sputter so that Christine could glide.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, very true. All
Well,
right.
it's C's all around, so that's a perfect spot.
C for car. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But we'll move on to Mark. Mark, what would you like to talk about, sir? For your first
Okay.
movie?
Sorry, I chose your movie, man.
Well, I made a list. I made a rough draft list, and then I of course, because it's 70s, I sent it to Mark, and I said I left off plenty of space, and I said, send me some other ones that we'll throw on the list, and the car was one of them. So I threw it on the list.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I submitted stuff that even I hadn't seen, but I figured that somebody on the panel would have, and at the very least, it should be, put into the conversation potentially.
Sure.
So I'm going to throw it. I'm throwing a big spanner into the works. For S tier, I am nominating possibly my favorite horror film of all time, and that is Dario Argento's Suspiria. This is the one that has scared me over repeat viewings. You have it. Yeah.
Right there, he's got it.
This is the one that has scared me over repeat viewings where I've had to call ex-girlfriends because noises in the house are frightening me. things that would have worked against it in other circumstances, like the fact that it is a post-dubbed movie, so the audio is very clean. It just adds to the nightmarish aspect of it, that it very much feels like a fever dream. It's got the jarring candy colors inspired by Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I think Clive Barker has one of the greatest quotes about it. Suspiria is what you thought horror movies were like when you weren't allowed to see them.
Right.
Great.
Yeah. Well, Austin, what do you think for Suspiria?
I won't say too much about Suspiria. I do like it. It definitely belongs in the S tier. I'm not huge on Italian horror, but I do make a few exceptions for some of the superior ones. Suspiria is definitely one of those that like kind of stands out. I think the music is great. It's got a lot of German expressionism stuff in it, which is a little strange for Italian, but it works. And yeah, like there's some stuff that you will definitely not get out of your head once you see the movie. Yeah, I mean, I think if we're definitely going to have at least Italian on this list, it's going to be Argento. Suspiria. Argento definitely deserves a spot in the S tier. I will agree fully with that.
Yeah, and for me, I've not seen it, but I was this close to watching it before we went on the air because I want to find one more to squeeze in, which I'll tell you which one that I watch when it gets to my turn. But I read the synopsis and I was like it's a little too foreign for me to squeeze in last minute. I kind of want to like have some more time to kind of watch it and like take it all in and everything. So it's definitely on my watch list. But yeah, I've not seen it. So.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a movie you have to absorb. I agree. I agree with the S tier as well. You know, this is. I don't personally consider it Argento's masterpiece, but this is the film that when you ask most people what is Argento's masterpiece, it's Suspiria, and I think it's because when you watch Suspiria, I mean, this is. You know, it just has all the elements of Argento that we're so familiar with. You know, beauty in ugliness, just kind of the way that he expresses that sort of violence, but it's kind of, you know, strangely beautiful at the same time. I mean, that's what I've always found so alluring about Suspiria. And while we're talking about it, I want to make sure too that we shout out Dario Nicolati, who wrote the script as well, you know, because I actually consider her to have a huge part in the success of this film and within the script. And you know, she was also involved in Inferno, and like she was kind of there for a lot of Argento's earlier works, kind of like Deborah Hill with John Carpenter, you know. So I just want to make sure she gets a little shout out too here. But no, it's an incredible film. It doesn't always make a lot of sense, but that's okay with Italian horror. That's not really what you're there for. So, but no, I think it's right where it should be.
There's a friend of mine who programs those, you know, like 12-hour movie marathons or 24, and like you always put Italian horror at like 2 a.m. because it always feels like
Perfect
a dream.
time.
Anyways,
Yep.
you know, imagery, you feel like you're half in, half asleep, half, you know, dreaming, and those are like perfect times for it.
Yeah,
Italian horror.
Yeah, I don't remember who described it as a fever dream, but that's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly what this movie
That was
is.
me.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Perfect description.
Andres, what do you think?
All I'm going to say, there was a reason why we've done a podcast for almost 4 years together, Matt, because literally you've spoken every single possible aspect about this movie that I really enjoy.
Well, this is one that we're not screaming at each other over, so
Definitely not. But yeah, no, absolutely. This absolutely makes a case for the S tier. No matter what anybody says, you have to sort of acknowledge what a big cultural moment this was for also not only for Italian horror, but also for what Americans would be able to tolerate, or not tolerate, but what we were allowing to broaden our palettes, if you will, here. Because by that point in time, we had some foreign films here and there, but they weren't necessarily getting as much mainstream as coverage as, you know, as some other stuff does. And Suspiria is one of those that brought Dario Argento to the United States, I think, or that at least put his name on the map for us. So absolutely, this movie makes a strong case for it. It's haunting. It is absolutely like Matt was saying, oddly beautiful in just how depraved it is, and absolutely it's fantastic. S tier all the way. I loved it.
Yeah, well, it was unanimous for S tier, so we'll just leave it right where it's
Mhm.
at. Not a lot of moving so far. We've been agreeing so far. So, but now we throw it to Austin. You're up. So you got one you want to
Yeah,
talk about?
I'll shoot high for my first one as well. I'm going to talk about a movie that's quickly become over the last 4 or 5 years a movie that's overtaken The Thing as my favorite horror movie of all time, my personal favorite. That's 1978's Philip Kaufman adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Is quickly becoming my
All
favorite
right.
movie, my favorite
I
horror
gotta
movie of all
find it
time.
here. I know it's on here. Oh yeah, here it is.
Yeah, there it is.
All right.
The movie, quite simply, is a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece of paranoia. It is a masterpiece of not trusting the people around you. When we first started this series, we kind of asked everybody, what's your favorite subgenre for? And mine is paranoia horror. But that's just why I love The Thing, which is why I love anything Body Snatchers. Not trusting the people around you and not trust the people you run into is one of the scariest things you could do for me personally. If there's a monster, I can see the monster, I can fight the monster. If there's a killer, I can see the killer, I can try to fight away from the killer. If I don't know who's who in a movie, if I wake up and the person next to me who I've been spouses with, for 30 years is not that person anymore, that's horrifying to me. And it hasn't been done any better than in this version of Body Snatchers. Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams is great. You get Jeff Goldblum, Veronica Cartwright from Alien, and then you've got Leonard Nimoy, at post Spock, playing this kind of uppity psychiatrist who's great. There's just fantastic montages of the sound design, just womp 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 womp, like these little just things that get into your ears. Just wonderful scenes all over. I could gush about this movie for an hour, but I'm not going to. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is S tier, and I adore it so much.
Yeah, well, I don't know what else I could say that you didn't already say, Austin. Like I just like pretty much ditto to what you said because you actually introduced me to this for the first time a couple months back, and I watched it and absolutely loved it. Like, I thought that it was great. Like it's one that I'm probably going to return back to all the time because and I can't believe that I've waited so long to watch some of these horror movies, especially this one. Uh, Donald Sutherland's performance was just like a powerhouse performance. So and like the cast in general, like you mentioned, is a very stacked cast and yeah, just like the fear of not knowing who's who, not knowing if the person's actually them or not, and like just the way that these aliens work, they're almost microscopic, and so it's just like a really scary thing because most people don't really think of aliens in that type of way. So yeah, like it's really terrifying. So yeah, I would say S tier all the way for an Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So.
I've got my shirt on. I don't know if you can see the picture.
Very nice.
With Sutherland.
Love it. Yeah, no, I mean, this is a classic. This is one of those films where I have to imagine for most people, even if you haven't seen this version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I'm sure you're probably familiar with either the GIF or the photo of Donald Sutherland like I can't really do it on this camera, but it's one that I have nothing to add to for why the film itself is great. But I will say that this is a film that continues to be relevant through time. Like you guys are talking about the concept of not knowing if the person that's with you is who they are supposed to be. And I was going to say the same thing for Alien, I forgot to, but both of these films, they feel more relevant than ever after having gone through this pandemic and still in it, where it's not exactly the same thing. It's not like people's personalities are being taken over, but just the idea that there's like this sickness spreading through everyone around you and you don't know who's infected and who's not. There's something that's just universally terrifying about that. And this is one of those films that really taps into that in a incredible way. And just so no, I think it's where it should be. It's, to me, also the best version of that story. And I think there's been like 5 Invasion of the Body Snatchers movies, if not more. So
Yeah.
this
Plus
is one that
the
did it the
faculty,
best.
which is pretty much Invasion of the Body Snatchers as well. I mean, they reference it in the movie, so it's
Yeah.
similar,
Right.
but yeah,
Invasion
pretty
of the Body
much.
Snatchers by
Yeah.
Kevin Williamson. Yeah.
Yep.
In
Yeah,
high
yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Andres?
I absolutely agree with everybody here. It's absolutely a film that holds up over time. I mean, probably one of the best final frames in any movie, in any horror film from the 70s as well, too. I mean, we're talking about Donald Sutherland, where it's like, oh, you go through this entire movie, and then by the end, it's that moment where like, it's like, yeah, it's like I remember watching that as a kid and just being like, huh, like that was like one of my first realizations that as protagonists in a movie, we could lose. Like it's like, oh,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is actually quite a grim ending. More
We
than
didn't
anything
win.
else. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
So,
Mm-mm.
yeah, no, there's been several adaptations of this, and none of them have come nearly as close to the level of paranoia that this one does. And there's a certain charm to what they were able to do in the 70s. So, absolutely, I agree. It's perfectly suited for where it is in the S tier.
Yeah. Mark, what do you think?
Again, I can't really argue with the S tier classification. I would personally say I like Abel Ferrara's just a little bit more because I think he starts getting even more paranoid than Philip Kaufman does.
Yeah.
But yeah, what everyone else has said, the grimness, the not quite nihilistic nature, but just the the fact that sometimes you just do not have the reserves to hold out, and there's parts of it that are grimly funny too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, another unanimous pick. So
I do think that the '93 one is very underrated as well. Like I think it's been a lot really overlooked and underrated. So I do agree
It
with
is.
that. I really like it.
yeah. Yeah.
R. Lee Ermey, Forrest Whitaker, yeah, Meg Tilly,
Yeah.
good
cast.
stuff. Yeah.
Well,
Remember that. Go right ahead.
speaking of Donald Sutherland, I wasn't going to talk about this one right away. I was going to wait a little bit, but I'll just bring it up now. So the movie that I just barely watched today, actually, and that is Don't Look Now. So, and I have kind of a bit of a controversial, possibly, take on it because I kind of thought that it's not a horror movie. Like I kind of classify it more as like a drama, kind of with like a few kind of thriller kind of elements to it. I mean, the ending kind of gets a little more towards horror, but for right now, I'm going to put it in actually not a horror movie. But I actually really liked it. Like I didn't love it, but I thought that there were great performances, and like if I had to actually rate it, I'd probably rate it about a B, probably. But I don't think it's a horror movie, so I'm just going to see what the rest of you guys think.
Well, so I'm one of those people that will always argue to death that if you find horror elements within a film, it's a horror movie if it feels that way to you. So I'm that kind of person who's like, Jaws is a horror movie, Jurassic Park's a horror movie. It's like, so for me, I would call it a horror movie, and I'd probably put it up around the A tier because first of all, as to why it's a horror film, I mean, you're talking about, this is a movie just kind of deconstructing the tragic loss of a child, and just what Sutherland and his wife are going through because of that. And there's all of this, mental trauma and regrets and just all these things working into it. And he's so haunted by this image of what he thinks is his child. And I don't know if we're doing spoilers, how much or not, but I will just say that
You can do it.
that
I mean, it is
okay.
the 70s,
Well,
I mean.
I don't. People aren't as familiar with Don't Look Now as they are with Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So I think we should try and keep some things under wraps.
Yeah. So I won't spoil the ending, but I will just say that
makes sense.
once you realize what's been going on this entire time, I mean, I think that moment's absolutely terrifying. Because Sutherland has been so traumatized and haunted by this loss of his child that he feels like he could have prevented. That he's projecting that onto the world around him, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just a very human movie. It just really taps into these fears that I think we all have, and and I just think that the tragedy that is running through it is so effective. It just feels like such a personal movie. And why I would say A tier instead of S tier is just that it is a bit slower. I can definitely see why some watch this and are like, it was just fine. But for me, I just think it's a really smart film, and so it at least belongs up near the top tier.
Yeah. Andres?
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with Matt on this one. I believe it is a horror film all the way through because, as Matt was saying, horror kind of deals in certain things that we don't like. It sort of deals in sort of taboos that we have as a society, and we don't necessarily talk about what it's like to really lose somebody or what it's like to really feel that pain or to experience the paranoia of that thing haunting you all the way through. I mean, like, this film reminds me of Sam Neill's Possession in the 90s. No, in the 80s. In the 80s, in the same way that it deals with how do you deal with losing somebody. Whereas in that film, it's more of the loss of a relationship. Whereas this one, it's more of the loss of the child. But it's one of those that perfectly captures it. And I absolutely agree with Matt, where it's such a human movie that when you start breaking down that relationship between Donald Sutherland and his wife, there's moments in it that are utterly heartbreaking and also utterly terrifying as well, too. I mean, like, it's a roller coaster of a film, even though it's very, very slow at points. I think it builds up in a crescendo to a very, very satisfying and also a third act that kind of still stays with you after so long. So I would say absolutely it's an A tier movie, but I will say it is not a date movie. And don't make the same mistake that I did.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
Yeah, I took a date to this to the new Bev. Yeah, let's just say there was not a second date.
Not a second date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark?
I'm gonna say yes, it is a horror film, and I'll take it to the A tier as well. Backing up what these fellows said, something that is important is that Nick Rogue, who directed it, started out as a cutter, and the way that this movie is cut together has definitely impacted horror films to follow, especially in the idea of suggesting that something is inevitable. That the scene that everyone talks about, and I don't think this is spoilery, is a very passionate lovemaking scene that is intercut with them already putting their clothes on, suggesting that the joy is over before it's even begun. That everything is so fleeting, much like the life of this child that they had that is cut too short. That this couple lost a part of them, and it's very likely they're going to lose each other in the process as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great.
Austin?
Yeah, human horror and family horror is still horror, and just because they're dealing with real horrific elements that could happen in real life, it's not some supernatural entity, it's not some alien creature, it's not some pods from outer space. It just because it's not that doesn't mean it can't be horrific. With Sutherland and them dealing with dread and grief and apprehension, and like you said, the crescendo that it builds to is truly frightening. I won't spoil the ending either. But yeah, everything that it builds to and comes full circle to, and the way it's edited and cut, it's something that sticks with you for a long, long time. Yeah, I saw this movie a couple of months back, like when I was kind of early prepping for this show because I knew I'd have to prep a little bit more than some of our other decades. But yeah, like it's really solid. And yeah, it's kind of a slow movie, which is why I wouldn't put it in the S tier. But I think a solid A tier is good for Don't Look Now. It's one people should look out for. Yeah.
Well, certainly enough votes to override me. So I mean, that's totally fine.
I was about to say we had like at least three of us say A tier. Why hasn't it moved?
Yep.
Right. It does.
Yeah, but absolutely wouldn't have been the A tier. So.
Oh,
but yeah,
right. We're back on the mat. All right, critic, what do you got?
All right. Well, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'm going to get controversial.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take The Last House on the Left, and I'm actually gonna throw it in the D tier.
Let's see.
Where
did I
yeah,
hit?
I know. I'm already getting eye rolls from like probably everybody and everyone watching this.
If anyone sees it, let me know.
Yeah. So
here it is.
Why
There
I'm
it
throwing
is.
it down there? First of all, to give credit to The Last House on the Left, I think it has one of the best taglines of all time. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. Like, you know, to me, I think that kind of really defines the horror of this film, because it is kind of one of those films that is so aggressive and so upsetting that, you know, you do have to kind of remind yourself it's only a movie. Why I have it where I do is that I think that on one hand, it's really well done, and then it's very effective. You know, it definitely achieves its goal of getting under your skin, making you uncomfortable, making you upset, terrifying you. Why I put it where I do is I think that Craven also kind of, in my opinion, really kind of shoots himself in the foot in some areas as well with the movie, because, you know, you're dealing with this very upsetting subject of, you know, rape, and just the way that it's depicted in the film. You know, I mean, this is like pure grindhouse going as far as they can possibly push the bar at the time. And you know, you're doing this very serious topic, but then at the same time, it's kind of intercut with, you know, just goofy comedy. Like, you've got these cops kind of driving around with this sort of like, you know, bunkin music, like, you know, it just so it's splicing together with all this silly stuff that I personally just feel kind of undercuts what the movie is otherwise trying to do. And it almost kind of feels like it's not taking the subject seriously in my mind. I know that's a bit critical of the film and its presentation, but I don't know. This is just one of those ones that I know it's a classic. I know people love it. I've never liked it though. I just can't watch it.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Andres, what do you think?
You know, I'm going to go controversial on this one. I'm going to say I absolutely agree with Matt 100% on this one. This is I watched this film right before I went to go see the remake back in 2009. And one thing that particularly stood out for me was listening to the commentary by Wes Craven and by all the actors that are in the film. And they all agree it's not one that holds up for either of them. Like, even Wes Craven bags on his own movie quite a bit. And I've told this story to Matt so many times, but I think it's very indicative of what this movie feels like and how it's not aged for a lot of us, is that one of the actors in the film went on to do gay porn, and he was asked at a Q&A what was the one thing he regretted doing the most in life, and he said absolutely number one was doing Last House on the Left, because he felt that it was purely exploitive. He felt like the film was just ugly for the sake of being ugly, and it was trying to push buttons, which again, it definitely was, and there was certain horror that definitely did do that, but I don't necessarily feel that there's any, for lack of a better word, any watchability or fun to this film. Like, it's just dark, it's just oppressive, and it's just not, it just doesn't hold up for me. And I absolutely agree with Matt. So there you go.
Yeah. Mark?
Well,
what do you think?
talk about you know, don't bring a date to this movie.
Yeah, no kidding.
Definitely not.
I'm not going to go as hard as Matt and Andres. I would put it at a B, in that, yeah, I feel like there's a cognitive dissonance between elements of the movie, and that, you know, the horror is so effective and the comedy is so not effective, that you know, that they really just, you know, get, you know, discordant. I would say though that I feel like that the comedy elements never really bothered me so much that I, you know, took points away from the film. I mean, I am taking points because I'm putting it at a B. And I think that, you know, some of that was maybe not necessarily meant to be funny as it was to be like grim in the sense of, that the people we entrust to take care of us are so bloody inept that the help is supposed to be coming and they can't even get their own car going. And also in the basic principle of, a movie like this shouldn't necessarily have levity, but they know that, okay, there's a drive-in audience watching this. You can't give them Michael Haneke. They have to have a moment where they can breathe and recover from everything that's happened. It could have still been done better, but I understand what was in mind. So I'm going to give it a curve.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I rewatched this one a couple months back. I had forgotten about all that cop stuff when I went to watch it. I thought it was like purely, it kind of went from, the horrible scenes at the beginning, and then her just going back to the family, and then them coming after the family. And I'd forgotten all this intermittent stuff with the bumbling cops. That's completely out of a whole nother movie. But it's, to me, I'll split the difference at like a C. I will say David Hess's performance is one of the creepiest, like, human, like, disturbing performances I've seen, to where I almost bought that guy is like that in real life. Like one of those things where I'm just like, almost like Richard Brake does now, where I don't know if that guy is like that. And I just go, I don't know about that dude. Like, I don't think I'd want to hang out with him, even outside of a movie. It's the same with David Hess in that movie. So I do think the scenes that are disturbing work. But yeah, it's a very wonky movie. It's very amateurish. I think Wes Craven obviously did get way better, but I think David Hess's performance elevates it to something that we wouldn't see again until probably Michael Rooker and Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, honestly. So I kind of put it right up there with that. So I'll give it a C. I'll split the difference.
Yeah. And surprise, I haven't seen it because I have seen the remake though with like Aaron Paul and Sarah Paxton and like a bunch of those guys, but like the remake was fine. Like I didn't really love it that much, but I've not seen the original, and it sounds like I'm not missing a whole lot, so that's fine. So. But
it's all subjective at the end of the day too. I mean, just because again, we're pretty. I mean, I feel like we're kind of split on this one actually.
Right. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
So I would say watch it and see where you come along with it, Jordan.
Right. Yeah. I'm always willing to give anything a chance, especially when it comes to like supernatural horror too. Like that stuff always kind of gets me a little more. But yeah. So, but it sounds like we had a B, we had a C, we had a D, so maybe it just ends up in the C tier.
Yeah, it gets pulled up to the C a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, that'd be okay right there.
Mm-hmm. Leave it right below the car, sure.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, but yeah, we'll throw it back to Andres. You got another one you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually, one of them that I do want to talk about. I mean, it's listed right here, but I don't see it. Is George C. Scott's Changeling still on here anywhere?
No, I think we had that in 80s.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Okay, all right.
1980.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Then I'll throw in something where it's, for me, definitely an S tier movie. John Carpenter's Halloween. Let's just freaking just do it right now, guys. Yep. But yeah, John Carpenter's Halloween, all the way up to the Blair Witch Project, was probably one of the most like one of the most successful independent movies of all time, and it's an indelible classic. And I dare I say, I don't recall having a single Halloween season and not putting this on at least once. And this is one of those films that completely defined what the slasher genre was. I mean, we had stuff like Texas Chainsaw, and we had other things like that before, but this was kind of the first time where it was done with a sort of precision of mood, atmosphere. I mean, with John Carpenter's direction, his incredible score, and Dean Cundy's amazing cinematography, and John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's writing on this as well, and also introducing us to probably one of the best final girls ever in Laurie Strode. It's a classic. It's absolutely classic. I love it so much. It is an S tier movie. Arguably, I don't know where to place it because I feel like it could go ahead of Alien or it could go behind Alien. But I'm going to split the difference on that, and I'm going to say behind Alien for now.
Yeah. Well, Mark, what do you think for Halloween?
I can't. I definitely support its S tier status, and I was struck by the fact that I was doing unrelated research, and I was going through old LA papers of 1978 and looking for reviews of Halloween, and I noticed that the LA Times did not review it until almost a week after it had played, and the Herald Examiner did not review it at all. I mean, or at least I went through 3 weeks worth of Herald Examiners, and they never said a damn thing. So when it came out, nobody expected it to be of any circumstance, and here it is now going to be one of the most important films of the century, so to speak. And yeah, it is efficient, it is lean, it is empathetic, and just a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin, what do you think?
Well, I actually I did an episode of Movie Battlegrounds, which is a debate show where I argued that Michael Myers is the most badass serial killer of all time, which and I went into the whole mythology that they would kind of expand on in the sequels. But even in this movie, the way that Donald Pleasance describes him as just this boy that just had this blank look on his face, never said a word, and was just possessed by something. And the fact that he's billed as the shape, the shape of evil, and that we literally call him the boogeyman because we don't know what to describe this entity that seems impervious to pain, that just continues to go until its mission is complete. The mystery surrounding the character that they did. Donald Pleasance is so good in this movie. I mean, they even I think they only had him for like 3 days, and he does a lot in those 3 days. But he is essential to the movie. I remember hearing stories about how with the score, they showed a rough cut of this movie without the score. It was dismissed as a boring mess, and then they added the score, and all of a sudden the same people said it was the scariest movie they'd ever seen. So it's absolutely critical. It is the theme for the Halloween season. Everybody knows it. What else is there to say about Halloween? But it belongs in the S tier.
Yeah. And Halloween's probably like top 3 all time for me. So yeah, this is definitely an S tier. And yeah, just Michael Myers is probably my favorite horror character. We're actually gonna have an episode where we're gonna be ranking the best horror characters of all time. But yeah, like he's just terrifying in the fact that you just can't kill him. Like you think that you finally got him, you think he's dead, and then he just keeps coming back. He just keeps coming and coming after you. And then also with John Carpenter directing and doing the music and stuff. I mean, like he's a genius. Like he pretty much made that movie into a masterpiece. And yeah, like kind of like Mark said, like this is one of the most important movies of like the last like 30, 40 years. And yeah, like it definitely deserves S tier. So. Absolutely. So
so I'm gonna go S tier as well. I mean, there's not much to say about the film that hasn't already been said, so I'll just add on to some of what you guys said, and I'll start with the fact that Donald Pleasance was essential. I mean, his performance is incredible, his delivery of the dialogue, and it's interesting too because if I remember correctly, I think Christopher Lee was at one point supposed to possibly do the role, and it ended up being Pleasance instead. And I actually think it's a nice coincidence that he was, because I think Pleasance brings a lot of humanity to the role. You really believe him when he's talking about how he's tried and tried and tried to get through to Michael, and he's just so exhausted and worn and just just feels like there's nothing there anymore, nothing to work with. He's not human. So he's a great part of the film. The music, I've heard that story too about how they played it without the score, and everyone's like, "Well, that was crap," and then you add the score, and everyone loves it. And I just wanted to say, I love that because that shows you the importance of a score in horror. Something that I think is so often missing in these movies is a good score. Especially with studio films these days, it's always kind of the same thing over and over and over again. And Halloween is that film that shows you, like, with an iconic score, you can completely define your movie on that. It is the theme that plays every Halloween. I used to go to Six Flags as a kid, and all month long, 24 hours a day, that's all they play. Gets pretty obnoxious, but it's all they play. And Dean Cundey's cinematography, I think it's some of his best work is in this film. I remember seeing this film as a kid, and that first moment where Laurie is standing up on the staircase and Michael just kind of slowly appears in the doorway behind her scared the shit out of me. That's the defining moment of, like, look behind you. So it's interesting because it's not the first slasher, but it is the film that kind of defined the blueprint for what we would follow into and through the 80s and so on. And I just think it's kind of funny that it is this movie that, introduced all these sort of tropes of, like, the virginal girl and you die if you have sex and do drugs and all that kind of stuff. And, if you talk to anybody who made the film, none of them are like, yeah, that's what we intended. Right. But it just kind of ended up being the format that we followed and the themes that we started to attribute with these. So, no, yeah, it's a classic. It absolutely belongs in S tier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing real quick I do want to shout out to is Nick Castle's performance as the Shape entirely is masterful in so many capacities. It's one of those things where it's such an understated performance, and there's small little moments and ticks that have been stolen, have been parodied so many times. Like when he stabs a guy and he's just looking at the body, just kind of
like a butterfly. I think you said.
Exactly.
I like when he sits up in the background and then turns his head and then gets up. Like, it's just a subtle thing, but it's such a subtle moment that it's the moment that makes everybody scream in the theaters if you haven't seen it before.
Oh, for sure. And I'll add one last thing, and that's the fact that so the last scene of the film, when they go to look over the railing and Michael Myers is gone. And you just see the shape of his body on the grass, right? That's gone. And I love that because I think it was Carpenter who I heard describe it once as he wanted the audience to have this feeling of when they walk out of the theater, Michael Myers can be anywhere. Michael Myers is not dead. You can't kill him. He's out there somewhere. And that's why we get all the cuts of, going through the house and neighborhood and you just hear Michael breathing underneath the track there. And it's to give you this feeling of, like, evil is everywhere. He is the representation of evil, so there's no stopping him. He's everywhere you go, And I just love that. I think it's so effective.
Yep, for sure. So it's a definite S tier. So we'll throw it over to Mark.
Well, I had joked earlier about the car and Christine. So consequently, here's another situation where somebody had to walk so that Carpenter could run. I am nominating Black Christmas for S tier as well. Right. I don't. Let's see. I would argue that Halloween is again the more lean and efficient movie, but I feel like there are so many elements of Black Christmas that set a template. I think you had it. It's right top row next to Dario.
There it is. Yeah, right there. All right. Cool.
That it established quite a few tropes on its own, and I feel like it does Carpenter one better by at least in some readings of the movie, never giving its monster a face. That it is just this presence that is, coming for anyone that is in its path. And it's amazing that Bob Clark was able to make arguably the scariest Christmas movie ever made and the most, heartwarming Christmas movie ever made in A Christmas Story. and that he understands how the yin and yang, how these things go hand in hand. To this day, I look for any opportunity to give out my phone number as Fellatio 20880.
Yep. Well, Austin, what do you think for Black Christmas?
Yeah, I'm glad you nominated Black Christmas. I was just rewatching it this afternoon. I was rewatching my Scream Factory Blu-ray. I hadn't watched it in a couple of years, and yeah, like Black Christmas rocks, man. It's I had forgotten how creepy it is from the opening, like you said. When we think of like POV stuff, we think about the opening of Halloween, but like the opening of Black Christmas is the Billy character, making his way in a POV shot, up into the attic of the house. And the fact that he's just there, he's this presence. And the phone calls are disturbing. They're creepy, where he's just going from insulting, them to screaming at them to laughing to shouting. When he's killing people, he's just doing these maniacal shouts and screams and all these crazy noise. It gets under your skin, and I think it has some of the best imagery I've ever seen in a horror movie. That image that they keep going back to of the girl with the plastic on her face is really just like it. That sticks with you for a long time. Even the stuff where the lady gets pulled up into the attic, by the hook, like just by her feet. Like there's stuff that sticks with you in this movie. Good cast, yeah. John Saxon and Margot Kidder pre-Superman, and Olivia Hussey, and is playing like the house mom, and she's only like 3 years older than Olivia Hussey in the movie, but it's still fun. But yeah, Black Christmas is really, really good. And yeah, like you said, Bob Clark doing this and A Christmas Story is the irony of ironies, but I love it.
Yeah, and this is a movie that I have seen, so I can talk about it.
Hey.
Yeah, and Black Christmas was a movie that I avoided for years. I remember when I was a kid seeing the trailers for it and just seeing the image of the girl with the plastic bag on her face, just sitting in the window there. That just like really, really creeped me out and just stuck with me for a long time. Also, I'm Christian, so I'm like, how am I going to watch something called Black Christmas? It's going to ruin Christmas for me. So for those reasons, I kind of waited a little bit, but so I just watched it very recently, and man, it was awesome. Just like the way that they film some of the shots with the POV camera, and then it created a lot of tropes that like the colors coming from inside the house kind of thing, and then also like the person going to the police and the police just like think that they're crazy, like it's like one of those scenarios too, and like yeah, like it's just a really just like really cool, fun horror movie that like yeah, this is one I'm gonna go back to quite often now. So yeah, I thought this movie was awesome. I'd definitely give it an S tier. So,
yeah, I'd go S as well. I mean, and I think it was Marcus said this. Personally, I actually think that it's better than Halloween, in my opinion, because and part of the reason I think for that is that Halloween itself is sort of a copycat of Black Christmas. Not directly, obviously, but I mean, the rumor is that Carpenter got a lot of his ideas and inspiration for Halloween from his conversations with Bob Clark about Black Christmas. So, but I just think it's an incredible film. It's frightening, but he also he taps into that A Christmas Story vibe as well, because I think a lot of people forget too that Black Christmas is actually pretty funny in moments as well. Every time I revisit it, I'm kind of surprised by how comedic it actually is. But it's just a really frightening movie. Most people consider the Halloween season to be the scary time of the year, and I would actually argue that I find the Christmas season to be the eeriest time of the year, because there's just something so cold and desolate, and the blood on the snow always looks great, and I just love the sort of kind of darkness and the sort of eerie vibe of the season. Plus, religion freaks me out, but and I think it was Marcus said too that you never see his face, and I think that's so effective as well, is that the killer only ever appears to us as an eyeball. I mean, you never see more than that, and there's something so uncomfortable about just never really knowing a damn thing about him. You know, I mean, we don't learn anything about the killer. We don't ever really know who he was or anything like that. And it's just, I don't know, that sits with you. And then yeah, the poster with the girl with the plastic over her head, it's an iconic image. It haunts you. You know, just her rocking up there in the attic like that. So no, I think it's S tier. I do personally believe it's more effective than Halloween. They're both amazing, but I would put it just above that. But yeah, no, great movie.
Yeah,
Andres.
definitely. Andres.
Yeah, no, honestly, I absolutely agree with everybody on here as well too. I mean, I would say personally for me, Halloween holds a little more of a nostalgia factor. But I remember seeing Black Christmas for the first time over at Matt's actually during his
Oh, yeah.
yearly horror movie his yearly horror movie marathon on Halloween, which I missed those so much, man. But yeah, but I remember watching his Scream Factory copy of the movie, gorgeous print, and just surprised by how much still holds up about this film and how much even some of the kills are actually very, very affecting as well. I mean, like even to the certain extent where it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, like you don't necessarily think about getting killed by a glass unicorn, like you know
unicorn.
what I mean? Like, it again, it does enough things differently that I feel that it absolutely is in that upper class as well too for horror as well. But I would say it's right behind Halloween for me in the S tier, but I absolutely loved it. From top to bottom, what we talked about with the killer, where he's not seen, the humor in the film, but also shout out to the phone. I mean, you mentioned the phone calls as well, but what I really love about the phone calls was that each time the killer picked up the phone call, in order to cause a little more confusion to the audience, it was a different person that answered the phone. Like they got a completely different actor or actress to play the killer. And it was utterly horrifying. And I have to give props to that entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like it's unanimous. The S tier for Black Christmas. But yeah, we'll throw it back to Austin. So you're up.
Well,
What do you want to go with?
that A tier is looking really lonely, so I'm going to shoot for A tier on this one. Not quite S,
right.
but a strong A, and just I'll do that by saying, gentlemen, it's time to keep our appointment with the Wicker Man.
All right. We'll find it here.
So let's talk about the Wicker Man.
Here it is.
Okay. So yeah, I had never seen the original one up until like 2 days ago. I had seen the Nick Cage one, like a lot of us had seen. I hadn't gone back and watched the one. I knew Christopher Lee was in it. You know, I knew of the original. I hadn't gone back to watch it. The Wicker Man rocks. It's one of the better like cult films out there, and I love the approach it takes with Edward Woodward, who's an awesome British character actor, playing this detective, you know, looking for this missing girl, and kind of slowly, as he's uncovering, you know, her story, kind of uncovering, you know, what goes on with this pagan group, you know, on this island. And yeah, it just builds and builds and builds to what I think is one of the most dour, crazy endings you've ever seen in a horror movie, that you're just like, no, they can't do that, can it? Oh yeah, they're gonna, yeah, he's going in there. Yeah, that's what they're doing. And you know, and it's such a template for movies that we see like Midsommar, you know, today. I think still owe, you know, the Wicker Man a debt of gratitude. But I think it's great. All the performances are good. Christopher Lee's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it's like a solid like A+ movie. I don't put it in like the top 10 of the 70s, anything like that, but it's really, really good. So I would argue A tier for the Wicker Man.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the A tier is a solid spot for it. So I've seen the Wicker Man, and yeah, Wicker Man's awesome in it, and like just like the atmosphere that it creates, and like it's like such a unique story. This guy just going to this island, finding this tribe of people, and who's looking for this missing child, and yeah, just like everything that he starts finding out, and then like what he has to go through, and then at the very end too. Yeah, it has a crazy ending, and so yeah, I remember seeing the remake with with Nick Cage because like I like Nick Cage, even his like bad movies, I'll watch them, but like this one was like really bad. Like I remember when I saw it, I was like, man, like that did not live up to the original at all. I'm like like that was horrible. So, but the original one's awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with Austin. I'm gonna say A tier.
Edward Woodward's performance in this movie makes me want to watch The Equalizer, which I've never actually gone back and watched. Like, because he was so good in this movie, I want to go back and watch it. But anyways,
yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
Good one.
Matt, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, you know, speaking of the remake, that I'm probably speaking out of my ass here, but I almost wonder if the remake has almost become more well known just because of that moment with Nick Cage and the bees. Like, it's just so fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Now I will be honest. I have not actually watched The Wicker Man in quite a long time, so I can't say too much about it. Other than I think it's right where it belongs. It is a great story. Christopher Lee's excellent in it. It is a precursor for films like Midsommar, and you know, it is, I think, one of the ultimate cult films. You know, these movies that deal with kind of this frightening element of going into environments where, you know, you don't you don't quite belong or understand, or how, you know, human beings, we kind of have these segments of culture that, you know, are a lot more frightening than what we're used to or what we know. And yeah, so I don't know. I'll end it there because it has been so long since I've seen it, but I think it's where it belongs. It's much better than the remake. Remake is terrible. Anyone watching this, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I will agree with Matt that it's been a while since I've seen this as well too, but I remember from when I had watched it years and years ago, it really did hold up. And then literally, I think about a week later, I watched the Nick Cage version. That was a real study for me in terms of you can do everything. You can do most things exactly how the original film kind of did, but the direction really, really does matter in a horror film. And yeah, it's a great fish out of water movie. I think it's perfectly suitable where it is right now in the A tier. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it far more in the remake, absolutely. But you know, the remake definitely did give us some very memorable moments. But again, I agree with Matt. It's one of those things where, man, the remake probably got more popular, but this is definitely one I think people should seek out.
Not popular because it's good. Just well known because of that one moment.
This one should be popular because it's good.
Come on, step away from the bike.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, Mark.
Well, okay. Well, first off, I'm going to agree with the A tier on this. I adore this movie, and I've bought it multiple times. The remake, to quote Arthur in the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it makes me sad. It's I don't even enjoy laughing at the mistakes because there's some interesting ideas going on, and it could have been good. It could have been great, even, but LaBute got so carried away with his art design, he forgot to figure out the heart of what makes the story terrifying. But less said about that, and I would use my time to put in a plug for my very valued friend Kayla Janice's upcoming Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched documentary, which is 3 hours devoted to the history of folk horror on film, because it's gonna be touching on this film and so many others like it from all parts of the world. And the box set that is going to be accompanying it is going to have some long desired favorites of mine, like Anchorus and Eyes of Fire, and then some really intriguing stuff that from other parts of the world. So
it's an incredible set. It's an amazing set, and I want to second that and fully agree. Amazing film. You know, it is long, yes, 3 hours plus or whatever. It does not feel like it. It runs through so many different folk horror films that I think that even people who consider themselves well versed in that genre will find plenty that they maybe haven't seen that they can seek out. You know, it's one of those movies where you want a list next to you or a little notebook next to you to just mark down everything that they're talking about. But it's an incredible film. No, she did an amazing job. So I just want to second that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that one out. That sounds really cool. But I guess it's back to me. So I want to talk about a movie that I just watched this week in preparation for the show. I want to talk about the movie Phantasm. So if I can find the poster here, I'm looking for the little silver ball thing, spiky ball thing.
There you go, right there in the middle.
Anyone sees it? Let's see.
Right in the middle,
right in the middle, right there.
Or the bird, yeah, right there. There you go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this movie, like, I wasn't sure what it was going to be like going into it. So Austin was kind enough to send me a huge package with the whole bunch of horror movies I've never seen before for my birthday this year, and Phantasm was one of the ones that he sent me. So I'm going to give it an S tier, but why I want to give it an S tier, like, I just loved all the atmosphere that it created. Like you kind of start out not really knowing what these little things are that are attacking people, and then you find out that these little dwarf kind of things that they're like cutting down bodies and like making them into little dwarf type things, and then just like the atmosphere that they create too, with like all the slick kind of like set pieces and like how they kind of go into this other kind of like almost like a dream world sort of thing, and then the relationship between the two brothers I thought was great, and like, yeah, just like from top to bottom, like this movie really surprised me. Like I wasn't sure what I was gonna think, and like I absolutely loved it. So yeah, I'm gonna say S tier.
Yeah,
Matt, what do you think?
I'm thrilled that you put it in the S tier. You know, this is kind of one of those that seems mixed sometimes. Like, a lot of people love it, but I don't know that a lot of people consider it on that level. I do. I actually have a little Phantasm ball right here. So,
Yay.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, I just picked up the box set. It's incredible. Yeah, no, it's an amazing film. You know, it's one that I've always really admired because of the sort of dreamy, kind of nightmarish quality of it. You know, it's a complex franchise. And I think one of the things that I've always loved about it is that, you know, for all the weirdness of it, for all of the what feels like an acid trip kind of throughout the franchise, there's a very human story at the heart of it. You know, talking about these brothers and their friends, and I've always really loved that the actors all continued to return throughout the decades. I think it's only the third film where I want to say it was Michael who was replaced, but other than that, the actors have all returned to the main roles. Angus Scrimm as the tall man is incredible. I mean, it's you know, he's one of those few horror villains that is terrifying for just being a guy. You know, like there's not, you know, he has no mask, he has no giant machete that he carries around. He's just a really tall, kind of creepy looking dude. You know.
Yeah.
But no, I love that, you know, and I won't spoil how the franchise ends, but, you know, the fifth film, it doesn't have the same quality as the rest of them, but the entire franchise together just wraps up so nicely in just, you know, just playing into just kind of how the mind works. And I guess I'll just end with, like, again, I just really love the fact that this is a film that you can watch it over and over and over again and find new things to take away, because there is no necessarily an explanation for anything. You know, it's a dream that you get to make out of it what you want. And I just find it to be so effective for that. Plus the score is kind of on the level of Halloween for me. It's not as popular, but I think it's an incredible score. So
yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Andres?
I'll keep it short, but I absolutely agree with all you. S tier all the way. I'd seen this for the first time actually a couple of years ago because of the podcast me and Matt did, and this one just flew under my radar for so long. And I remember literally on the weekend that I saw it, Angus Scrimm died, and I was like, oh my god, like it felt like I discovered something, and then he was gone, and I was like, crap. All right, well. but yeah, and then having watched all the sequels afterwards, yeah, it's absolutely a complicated series, and it's very debatable about the quality, but you cannot debate that this first film is great in its own sense. It's innovative, it is unique, it absolutely belongs in the S tier.
Well,
Absolutely. Mark?
this is where I'm going to be showing my ass. I have still never seen Phantasm. I've been just holding
man.
out for a proper, presentation, something writ large with people. But I cannot. I grew up on the commercials. They freaked me out as a kid, and I recently saw Don Coscarelli's earlier film, Jim the World's Greatest, where Angus Scrimm is just playing an abusive dad, and he was already pretty terrifying there, and there's no horror, except that of bad parenting. So yeah, Coscarelli's a born filmmaker.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, Austin, what do you think?
And you know what? Yeah, I've rewatched Phantasm yesterday because I hadn't seen it in a while. It had been a minute, but I sent it to Jordan for a reason. I had a sneaking feeling, and then when I rewatched it, I was like, "Yeah, dude, Phantasm is great." The mythology they set up in this movie just kind of out of nowhere, and how crazy it gets. Even just in that first movie, it's like, oh, there are these crazy dwarf slaves on another dimension planet that's like red, and they're cutting bodies, and like, what is going on just right under our eyes. But I want to shout out something that I noticed watching it this time is the characters in this movie for the most part make smart decisions, which was fun. When Mike gets back from his first big encounter with the tall man, he kind of takes the finger with him. He shows people, and he's like, no, look, there's crazy stuff going on. There's people who bleed yellow. And there's this crazy finger, and people believe him. Jody believes him, his brother. And what do they do then? They arm themselves with guns, and they try to hold up and be like, okay, let's approach this with caution. Jody goes to check it out. He gets attacked by dwarves immediately. What does he do? He runs away. He doesn't keep exploring. He's like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I'm leaving. Let's regroup and think of a different strategy. There's tons of things throughout the movie where it's like, yes, doing smart things. I appreciate that. It's one of the reasons you connect with the characters, because they do things that that make sense. They're not just out there just doing stupid things and dying. It's not just a body count movie, something like that. But it's a lot of fun, man. Great atmosphere, good direction. Yeah, good score. Really underrated score. Yeah, I'd support Fantasy. It'd probably be at the bottom of the S tier for me, but I'd still support it in the S tier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, you don't take any warning shots. Warning shots are bullshit, right?
No, he shoots them and then he leaves.
Yeah,
damn right.
Exactly.
He shoots the doors and he leaves.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But we'll throw it back down to Matt. You're up again, so you got another one you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out one I would rank in one of the levels we haven't really touched, like B or something like that.
Yeah.
So so this is one where I'm not even sure I would put it in B because it is such a classic itself, but I'm gonna try it and see what you guys think. So I want to throw When a Stranger Calls into the B level, into the B tier.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain why. So When a Stranger Calls to me is so interesting. Speaking of Black Christmas, I mean, this is a film that directly took from that kind of urban legend of the killer is calling from inside the house, and what is so interesting about this film is that first act, the entire, I think, first 20, 25 minutes or so is just the girl dealing with the killer calling her through the phone and terrorizing her, and then you get that whole the killer's inside the house thing, and it's just a really terrifying moment. I consider that opening to be one of the best openings in the genre. I just think that it's just so well paced. It's creepy. Just the situation itself. I imagine it really terrified audiences at the time. The thing with When a Stranger Calls, though, is once you get past the first act, I feel like the film kind of dramatically slows down and it doesn't really quite get the same effect until maybe the last little bit of the finale there. I still think it's a good film. It just doesn't quite keep your attention as well as that first act does. I feel like it kind of loses steam as it goes. So I don't know if anyone agrees with that, but I'll place it there just to give the B column some love.
Yeah. Andres, what do you think?
All right, you know what? I think I absolutely agree with Matt on this one. Although for me, it would kind of slide. I mean, I know we're trying to keep it in B, but it would kind of slide a
Now you
little
put whoever
more
you want.
into the upper C tier because, like I rewatched. I watched this film for the first time a couple years ago because I was doing a horror marathon as well too, where basically we had watched the remake of When a Stranger Calls, which is freaking god awful. But yeah, this film absolutely is the very definition of a very strong first act that kind of struggles to sort of keep its momentum going forward. And like Matt said, it's one of the best first acts just in any horror film, but you got to dock a little bit of points for not sticking the landing. And it's one of those that I wouldn't necessarily say go seek it out right now, but it's also one of those that if you don't watch it, you're kind of not missing much. So B rank is kind of B high, C is kind of the where I would put this at.
Yeah. Mark?
This is another one from my childhood that I didn't get around to seeing, because when I was a kid, I was, too much of a puss for horror, and as an adult, I'd like to see it, engaged with others, and it hasn't been revived as often as the other classics, partly because of perhaps some of the weaknesses that the other fellas have cited.
Yeah. Austin?
Yeah, this is one I actually watched this morning before the show that I hadn't seen. It was free on Vudu, so I watched it. It's because I knew the trope of the line in the movie. The we just traced the call. It's coming from inside the house, and the whole have you checked the children yet? Have you looked at the children? And the thing that threw me off is about when that whole first act is concluded. And this isn't really. Kind of a spoiler, but not really. That he killed the children, they're dead, and that threw me. I was like, whoa, that was disturbing to me. I thought he was just doing it just to mess with her, and no, he's actually a killer. He gets put in a mental hospital, and then it's Charles Durning tracking him down after he escapes. It's kind of a procedural movie for a while, for another hour or so, as he's bumming around with homeless people and just kind of going from bar to bar. Yeah, it really loses steam. Not that I never lost interest, but because Charles Durning is really good as the detective. But yeah, I think it picks up again in the last 10, 15 minutes. But I think B is a perfect spot for it because that opening is so strong and does stick with you, and that it kind of carries the movie even through the finale, even though the rest isn't up to par. But I think B's pretty perfect for it. That's about what I felt like when I kind of was done with the movie. I was like, yeah, that's a nice solid B. But it's something I'll think about. But it was weird seeing Carol Kane as some high school babysitter. She's 26 in the movie, but she's just one of those ladies who's looked 50 for forever. I just couldn't get out of my brain. And I'm sorry to say that, but she looked exactly the same as she looked in Scrooge 10 years later. So already in 78 or whatever.
But you hit part of the effectiveness of it too, is that you do find out that the kids are actually dead. And that's always been such a taboo part of horror. And to me, whenever that happens, not only is it frightening, but I always kind of feel like once you and especially in a film like this, when you do it early on, once you establish that kids can die in this film, to me, anything goes at that point.
Anything goes.
All bets are off.
That really ups the suspense because then when you get to the finale, you're like, oh my God, is the kid gonna die?
Yeah, no, because Carol Kane makes it out of there, but and then they're just casually carrying 2 body bags, these cops behind them, and just kind of talking about how they didn't make it, and he mutilated them with his bare hands, and you're just like, whoa, that hit me way harder than I thought it would, just because you thought, oh, maybe they'll just be, he was hiding in a closet, but he didn't actually do anything, he was just messing with it. No, he killed them, they're dead, and it's oh, that's creepy, yeah. So sorry, Jordan. I'm going to cut in your time. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No, you're fine. Well, actually, I haven't seen it, the original one. I've seen the remake, and the remake's it's just cheesy. The whole have you checked the children yet? That just gets really cheesy in the remake. But so can't really rank it. But I definitely want to go back and see it because I know that this is a movie that my dad saw at at an early age, and he said that some of the stuff really stuck with him. So yeah, I want to go back and try to watch it. But yeah,
Quick trivia bit about director of the movie Fred Walton. He directed a sequel called When a Stranger Calls Back that people forget about in '93, and then he also directed a Stepford spinoff called The Stepford Husbands that was terrible.
Oh wow!
Well, I've never actually seen that. I have seen the sequel though, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how there was a sequel when dude comes in like at the end of Halloween and just shoots him dead right in that bedroom. But weird. Okay, he's not the boogeyman. I don't think that guy was as tough as Michael Myers, but okay,
probably
sure,
not.
he's back.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a B is about a perfect spot for it, so we'll leave it there.
All right.
What would Andres? It's your turn. So what do you?
Well, if we're looking for more B movies, you know what? This
you don't have to. You can keep shooting for S. You can go wherever you like. We were just throwing some stuff around.
We'll get to the S. We'll get to the S eventually. But all I will say is the very definition for me of a B movie. I mean, it absolutely has to go to Piranha. Piranha is just it's one of my all-time favorite movies is Gremlins 2. Controversial choice, yes, I know.
No way, man.
No, it wasn't. It made the S tier in our 90s show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, there you go. All right.
Me and Bibiani are both big fans of Gremlins too. Big fans.
The cult is growing for that movie. I love it.
Yes. But Piranha absolutely is the very definition of a B movie. It's a Jaws ripoff in all the worst ways possible. But the thing is, it's got such a comedic sensibility to it where it knows what it is and it just takes the time to just have fun with what it's doing. And again, Joe Dante is one of those people that just absolutely walks a fine line between horror and comedy so well that the beginnings of stuff like Gremlins or Gremlins 2 or even just The Burbs or any of those iconic Dante films, it absolutely starts with this film, and I think it's just a ton of fun, and it's pretty much, for me, the very definition of a fun B movie. So I actually would put it above When a Stranger Calls, most definitely. So that's honestly where I would keep it at, to keep it short.
All right, Mark, what do you think?
I would put it in A tier personally. It achieves its goal of being an effective ripoff of Jaws, but it injects so much of Dante's personality and quirk in there, and does top spins on the cliches and has such wonderful character actors in there that there's a reason why Spielberg started hiring Dante to direct his own projects for his company, because he clearly, game recognizes game.
Yep.
Yeah, no. One of my really great friends, Paul, he described Dante as somebody who, if there's a line, Dante's playing jump rope with that line quite a bit, and it's absolutely evident.
Yep. Well, Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably go like a B plus. I've got that Roger Corman Classic Special Edition DVD over there. I like Piranha. It's a lot of fun. It's. I love the noise that they make when they do the POV of the piranha swarming somebody. It's like or whatever that goofy noise is when they're spawning on somebody. But yeah, like I love the finale kind of builds to. Isn't it like a camp or something? Like everybody's swimming at some like camp, or like a summer camp or something, whatever it is. But you got my boy Kevin McCarthy from the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, who cameoed in the '78 one. Is like the main scientist guy. You got your Dick Miller cameo, of course, because it's Joe Dante, so he's going to throw Dick Miller in there. It's. I think it's more fun than people kind of give it credit for, and Dante's one of those guys where he knows exactly what he's doing. He rides that line, but he knows when to make it serious, and he knows when to be a little goofy. So yeah, I like Piranha a lot. I probably do like. I might even slide it into the A tier, almost like Mark. I mean, it wouldn't be as high as like the Wicker Man for me, but I could see it being at the like a minus. So you know what? I'll go A minus. A minus for Piranha. Yeah.
Well, I've not seen Piranha. These are just movies that it just never really crossed my radar, really, and so I've never gotten around to seeing them. But I think I'll eventually sometime check them out. But yeah, so I can't really comment. So we'll throw it down to Matt.
If I could recommend a great double feature for you, watch this Piranha coupled with the Alexander Aja version of Piranha.
I love that movie.
And
Love
It's
that
great.
movie.
That's how you do a remake.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You down for that?
I think I would actually throw it into the A- tier as well, because I think that this movie is pure Dante. You know, the funny thing about Piranha is, yeah, it's a Jaws ripoff, and when you consider the fact that it's this low budget Roger Corman movie, you know, it very easily could have been, in the wrong hands, just a complete piece of garbage, right?
Oh, you mean like
And-
Piranha 2: The Spawning? Yeah, like
Yes.
that movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, that film brought us James Cameron, dude.
Yeah,
No,
we worked
not
on it for
really.
what, like one day?
For a day.
Hey, it's absolutely the best flying piranha movie ever made.
That's true.
Indeed. I like Andres' line that he mentioned there about if you give Dante a line, he'll jump over with it, because Dante does bring this really great camp to the film that makes it a lot of fun. But he does have very effective horror in it as well. You know, like I actually remember being more scared of Piranha as a kid than I was of Jaws. Because, and I couldn't really tell you why. It's just there's something about it. I think this movie is a little more vicious than Jaws, you know, because despite the camp and despite the fun elements of it, I mean, for God's sakes, you got one moment with a walking fish that just never shows up again for some reason, you know. Despite all of that, it's another one of those films that's very taboo in the sense that you do have that whole camp third act where, I mean, there are kids getting eaten by these things, right? And I mean, it goes so hard on the horror that I think the combination of that with the comedy, you know, again, it's just pure Dante movie. It's just a lot of fun. It's very entertaining. It's one of the few Jaws ripoffs that I think actually kind of stands on its own. So yeah, no, I think A tier actually works really well for it. A-.
Well,
Yeah,
despite your efforts, Andres, with 3 A's and a B, it moves up into
Yeah.
the A tier.
See, and I can't argue that at all, because I absolutely really dig this movie. But it's one of those that, like, literally, it's so the definition of a B movie for me. But it has so much heart that you just I absolutely agree. It's an A tier movie, but it's.
And come on, what a great poster! Look at that poster. That poster's
Yeah,
awesome.
right?
The poster's
Yeah.
great. And yeah, no, exactly. Like it is a B movie. I mean, for God's sakes, you know, on set they had the piranha on like little sticks that they were moving around in the water like this, right? You know, like it could have been awful, but Dante he's just a great director, so he made it more than it could have been.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Back to Mark.
Okay.
Back to
Oh,
Mark. What do you want to go for?
Let's fill up that A tier a little bit, because there's there's only so much time and there's so many that I would throw in there, but I'll lean on this one because I don't think enough people know it, even though it's been ridiculously easy to see but hard to see in a good presentation, and that is Alfred Soul's Alice, Sweet Alice.
Right.
It is,
Here's the
yeah. This is an A tier for me. It is, it's not just an effective, sort of, who's killing all these people in the neighborhood type story. I dare say it is the best film about 60s era East Coast Catholic guilt that is not directed by Martin Scorsese. Most people pay attention to this movie because of the fact that it has 12-year-old Brooke Shields in it, and she gets snuffed out in the first 20 minutes. But Max Rosenberg didn't want you to know that when he reissued it as Holy Terror in the 80s. But it has such a great protagonist in Alice, played by Paula Shepherd, because the eternal question is, has she or hasn't she been committing these killings, and she's, you always have to question, well, she could have, and also, even if she didn't, is something going to push her to the point where she can? And it has all of these creepy figures looming around, and it makes some really pointed statements about how church culture can breed psychosis in people, because again, it's the early 60s, and one of the plot threads is Alice's mother has gotten divorced, and she's kind of looked upon as a pariah in the neighborhood, even though she kind of wants to maintain friendly relations with her ex, even though he's gotten married again. That there's all sort that I think a really good horror film is, dealing with real life dramas and traumas, and I think that is where Alice, Sweet Alice is most effective.
Yeah. Austin, what do you think?
Well, I had time for one more horror film before we went live, and I picked The Sentinel over Alice, Sweet Alice, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, but it was on my short list to watch, so I unfortunately missed. I did watch the trailer. It looks interesting, and that poster looks right out of like an 80s slasher movie. I mean, it looks like something like like an April Fool's Day or My Bloody Valentine or something. Like, it looks like something with the knife in it. Like, that was every other slasher poster in the 80s.
Well,
so, I mean, they're kind of ahead of their time.
I would caution you
I
that there is the only official trailer is that terrible one that Max Rosenberg did for Holy Terror. That when it was originally released, I don't think they ever got around to making a trailer for it. At least when Arrow did their Blu-ray with Warner Brothers help, they did not find one in the vault. So.
Yeah, no, I saw the one that was called Holy Terror. Yeah, that's the one I saw. So I have to abstain. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch it, so I have to abstain.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it either, but it sounds like for a horror movie, like just a really kind of interesting, kind of fun, kind of like almost kind of slasherish movie, but just some like a movie with a lot of gruesome kind of deaths and things like that. So like it's definitely something that'd be up my alley. But yeah, I have not seen it, so I'll abstain.
You could call it an American Giallo in a sense, that it's kind of following the same template that something like Deep Red is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well,
Matt.
Yeah,
I was gonna say the poster also makes me kind of think like Giallo a little bit, but Mark's gonna hate us. This is one of like the 3 films on the list I haven't seen, or at least not that I can remember. But so the one thing I will say is I do love stories like this that kind of revolve around the idea of a child that can kill, right, and that kind of terror over the idea of like, well, what do you do about that? Because I think there's actually a movie called Can You Kill a Child? But it's just the idea of, if your child is killing, like, how do you stop that? If you're given the moment of being able to stop that, it's just a different kind of killer to me, and it fits right in with films like Bloody Birthday or The Bad Seed, just these movies, The Good Son, like it's always very effective because you're just dealing with this family that has to decide, what do we do about this child? So I can't really say anything about the film. It kind of makes me want to watch it as soon as we're done with this, but it's a classic that I've missed.
Yep.
Andres,
have you seen it?
Well, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Matt, I saw a horror movie that you did not see, and to quote the good son, "Don't fuck with me, Matt." But I will say, I haven't seen this in quite a few years, but I remember watching it and really enjoying it. And again, to piggyback what Marcus said about this film, it's truly unsettling in certain respects. And again, talking about killer kid movies, there's not nearly enough of them, or at least not enough really good ones. And this one, I absolutely feel comfortable leaving in the A tier. And yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything you said on this. So yeah, definitely A tier.
Thank you for saving my bacon. Oh,
Yeah, we made an
by the way,
exception.
I just love the fact that compared to all your other screens, I look so much paler and washed out by comparison. So I feel like a 70s horror film that's been
Yeah.
run too many times.
There you go.
If he turns sideways, Mark kind of looks like Angus Scrimm and Phantasm a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got kind of that long hair.
Yeah. A little bit.
I'm too short.
Yeah.
Right, you're not tall enough. Yeah.
Jordan, I'm
Well,
almost
Austin,
tempted. I know he's under a time constraint. I'm almost tempted to give Mark another regular pick because I know we're going to have to do the wrap-up round pretty soon since he's
Sure,
under
yeah.
a time
I mean-
constraint. You want to give him another pick
Yeah.
just because he's
Yeah.
kind of under a constraint
I'm
at the
totally down for
Starbucks
that.
he's at.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mark, you want to do another one?
Yes, and this time I will put it for the S tier. Cronenberg came out like guns a-blazing in the 70s. We've got 3 of his movies on there, and I think any one of them, that could, have a convincing argument for the S tier. But if I had to pick one to put in that spot, I would go with Shivers.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it
Let me find it here.
It-
I know what the poster looks like. It's a lady in the
it's
back.
it's
in the back there.
between
There we go.
Rabid and the Amityville
There
Horror.
it is. He got it.
There we go.
Mhm.
And
All right.
that it sets the template for his brand of what he called venereal horror, or or medically accurate horror. And
Real horror. I love that, man.
yeah, well, I'm nominating for S, but we will see.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
what I think makes it, really sort of stand out from the others that follow is that it has, that feeling of, cloistered paranoia, because it's about a viral outbreak in a otherwise, sanitary apartment complex on an island. It's supposed to be this place where all needs are provided, your shopping, your entertainment, and your residency. And, that confinement is now going to be, a death sentence for the people who live there. But yet at the same time, because it is a sexually based virus, the creature is, so penile that I had years ago, I had a girlfriend who was working as an editor at a TV station where they had the rights to the movie, and she basically had to cut almost every clear image of the parasite monster, and she hated the movie as a result because she had to cut around it so often. But that because it is a sexually based creature, people are not reacting with horror when they get infected. They're reacting with pleasure. So it is, it is frightening you with orgasms. It's playing so many ideas against each other. And if Dante is playing jump rope, I think Cronenberg is, he's played Foursquare and thrown down a cherry bomb. So,
Yep. Exactly. Well, Austin, have you seen Shivers?
Yeah, this one, along with the Wicker Man and a couple others, are Blu-rays that I ordered to watch for the show, and I watched Shivers. And yes, sex zombies. You wouldn't have thought it from Cronenberg, but yeah, sex zombies. And it's fun and silly. I would probably throw in like an A tier. I don't put it on the same level as Body Snatchers and Alien and stuff like that. Just me personally, just because it looks like it's like the quality of a porno movie from the 70s. It's shot kind of. I mean, you can tell it's early Cronenberg. It plays like that. It does have a good sense of humor. I do enjoy. There's like a scene with 2 girls, like they see one of the little parasite things in like a mail slot, and they just go like, "Ew, gross," and they run away. It's like, "Ew," they're just like running. Like it it's silly. It's kind of fun. I enjoyed it for what it was, but to me, it's like more of like a B movie, like B tier, like just for me personally. But I do find it fascinating. Early Cronenberg, I do like Cronenberg. He's got a morbid sense of humor in his body horror, which I do appreciate.
Yeah. This is one that I haven't seen, but remember a pretty big Cronenberg fan. I mean, like Scanners, Videodrome, The Fly, like those are all great Cronenberg movies. So I mean, if it's a Cronenberg movie, even for an early one, I'm down to check it out. But I've not seen it, so I have to refrain from ranking it. But,
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah, I'm really torn between S and A because I see the argument for both. It's first of all, I completely agree. I consider the 70s to be a lot of Cronenberg's best work. The Brood's actually my favorite Cronenberg movie. And so what I guess I'll say about it is, it is low budget. It does kind of have that. I guess what'd you say? It's like a porno quality. I don't know if
it's a Cronenberg porno movie. That's kind of
yeah, like I don't know if I go quite that far on the quality, but I do see the argument for that case. But what I will say too is that I think it's a fascinating movie. I mean, this to me is why Cronenberg stands out so much, and why, in my opinion, there will never be another Cronenberg. Because no one can do Cronenberg. Is that for such a kind of campy concept and film, it's a brilliant movie. I mean, because it is. I feel like when you're dealing with these viral films, I mean, like Mark said, how often do you deal with something where you have this virus going through in a horror film, and the terror is that it actually makes you more sexually active. It's such a weird concept to think like, oh, orgasm's terrifying, but it's touching on just that, just that idea of like this kind of awakening of something in you that is terrifying as it is pleasurable. Like I think we can all be honest, like sex is terrifying when you're first kind of getting into all of that, right? Like it's this weird thing you don't understand, and then you throw in the concepts of viral diseases. And I mean, to think that this came out like right before AIDS was becoming really prevalent too is kind of an eerie coincidence. But no, I think that it's actually a really smart movie. So I don't know. I'm kind of like torn. It's like a A plus S minus. I don't know. I can't quite figure out what tier I want to put it on, but no, I think it has that Cronenberg brilliance to it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. The first time I had seen this film was actually in my horror in the undead class in college, and that was a pretty memorable experience watching this movie for the first time. Having said that, I'm never going to argue for a Cronenberg film not being in the S tier or in the A tier. I mean, like you guys all said, it was way ahead of its time. I mean, like even still to this day, like you wouldn't have movies like It Follows, or like those very sexually based films, like even Species to a certain extent, if it wasn't for this film. And I mean, come on, Cronenberg is absolutely a genius. So, yeah, keep it in the S tier. Fuck it, keep it in the S tier.
Yeah. Well, does it stay in the S tier, Austin? Like,
I kind of, in order to determine that, I kind of need a definitive ranking from Matt, to be honest.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and give it an S, just because it is a film that has largely influenced me. I actually think about that ending quite often because it is so bizarre and unsettling. So we can throw it there. I think that this movie was a firm establishment of what Cronenberg's career was going to be for a while, in becoming that kind of body horror king. So I think we can throw it up an S.
Okay. Well, with 3 S's and a B, it'll kind of probably be at the bottom of S tier, but it'll skirt in there just barely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm kind of feeling like maybe we should give Mark one more because he's almost to his end.
Well,
you want to pick one more?
Well, I mean, look, we've got some bona fide classics that are going to get into the S tier one way or the other. and so,
if you want to shout out, like a tier one that you just think more people should see or something, or one of those movies that you think is underseen, or, we'll use your knowledge.
Oh, okay. I'll shout out one more briefly for the A tier, just because it's probably one of the lesser known ones, even though people know the title, and that is The Blood Spattered Bride by Vicente Aranda. It had a very infamous ad campaign as a double feature with I Dismember Mama, where people were shown out at a movie theater reacting horribly to it. It is a very, part of it is based on the legend of Carmilla that has been done in so many other movies like The Vampire Lovers and Blood and Roses, but it is also just such a great study of toxic masculinity, in the sense of, the primary characters are a newlywed couple who are on their honeymoon, and the guy's already kind of a jerk, and then he's starting to get entranced by this vampiric figure that it plays like a horror version of Elaine May's The Heartbreak Kid with Charles Grodin and Sybil Shepherd, and I always felt like they would be a great double feature with each other. And, people know the title because Quentin borrowed it for one of the chapters of Kill Bill, but it is a really good film about, sexual mores in addition to, your standard female vampire tale. And also, I wanted some other world representation in here. It's why I suggested stuff like The House That Vanished, which is a great Spanish horror film that was very, kind of influential on people like Guillermo del Toro and J. Bayona. And so I'm, glad I could throw that out there.
All right.
Yeah. Well, Austin, have you seen it?
No, I didn't get around to it, unfortunately. But I was intrigued when I looked it up that most of the reviews mentioned Eurotrash lesbian vampires. That definitely piqued my interest in watching the movie. So I was intrigued, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to see it. So, but I definitely intrigued by what Mark always drops knowledge, man. I'm down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I've not seen it either, and it's definitely one that I want to check out. I mean, just
what was that movie? It was double billed with. I was intrigued by that one too that you talked about. With something with the mother or something.
I Dismember Mama.
I Dismember Mama.
Yeah.
That sounds great too.
It's not nearly as good.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've heard of it. I want to see that.
Yeah. But the premise sounds very intriguing though. Like this couple in this kind of haunted place being stalked by a killer. I'm always down for something like that. So yeah. But Matt.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of the other few I haven't seen. Spanish horror is an area that I'm starting to get more into. I'm not familiar as much with it, so unfortunately, this is one I can't really comment on either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Andres?
Sorry, Mark, but I was literally 1 week away from doing the TV edit for this film over at my last job before I got laid off. And unfortunately, I did not have a chance to see it, but I know of its legacy and it's infamous for so many reasons. And yeah, it's one of those that's been on my list, and for sure it's going down my list tonight.
I stumped the band.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
for trying though.
As a favor for Mark, I think we can leave it up there. It's not going to make our top 10 of the honorable mentions, but we could just put it in the bottom of A just for information's sake and let it sit there for people to see and know of. So
I'm totally down with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just kind of keep going until they kick you out, Mark, so you can just stay as long as you can. But but Austin, you're up next. So you
I think there's a couple of more super obvious S tier ones. I think I'll get one out of the way right here. It's the granddaddy of all zombie movies, and that's George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. I think absolutely has to be pretty up near the top of this. And it's funny. I've talked about Dawn of the Dead on a lot of our shows. Like I think we did like a best sequel show and all this stuff, and everybody else like ranks it like a or a B. Like all these non-horror fans, like you guys are killing me. Like Dawn of the Dead is amazing. Like Dawn of the Dead is so great. And I got my brand spanking new 4K a few weeks back of Dawn of the Dead, which I was so glad they were able to do with the rights issues. It looks amazing. And yeah, I mean, what's there to say about Dawn of the Dead? The special effects are awesome. The Savini stuff is great. All the stuff, even the little human moments throughout the movie in the mall, they're playing with the bank money, they're trying all the food, they're trying on clothes, they're playing in the arcade, they're going ice skating, messing around with the music, just all the things you would do if you were stuck in a mall, for a long period of time, just doing things, the way they strategize throughout the film. I just love, we're going to do this to avoid the zombies. We're going to block off the doors. Like it's all the stuff you would see in like the Zombie Survival Guide by Max Brooks, like they did in this movie in 1978. You know what I mean? Like all the stuff they would do and making smart decisions. Ken Foree's great. I forget the guy that plays the other cop. I forget his name. I apologize. But like the whole cast is good. It's a small group of people. But yeah, it's the zombie movie, man. Dawn of the Dead. I mean, he topped himself even with Night of the Living Dead with Dawn of the Dead. I mean, George Romero doing what he does best.
Yeah. And I watched it this week for the first time, and I loved it. I thought that it was great. Like I think that I do like it better than the 2004 version, but that one's kind of up there for me too. Like I was surprised when I saw that one for the first time. So, but the movie is just so much fun. Just like seeing them hold up in this mall and just all the crazy things they're able to come up with and strategize and like when they're going out for supply runs and all this stuff and like some of their dialogue back and forth, especially Ken Foray, like he's great in it. Like he's probably my favorite character. So yeah, like and also too, like I'm a very big character like based person. Like any movies or a TV shows where you're like introduced to all these cool characters. I'm always down for that. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I'd say S tier. So.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think?
Absolutely S tier. I mean, this is my personal favorite zombie film. I think it is the zombie film. For good reason, Night of the Living Dead gets a lot of discussion and a lot of the credit, but I think that Dawn of the Dead is the true kind of blueprint for essentially what came after. There are so few zombie films these days where you don't have a reference to the shopping in the mall that they do or something like that. And what I think is great about it is, to me, this is kind of like Romero's epic. You have this first film with Night of the Living Dead that is much smaller, contained, isolated. And then for his second, for the second zombie film, he decides to go all out and, shoot in one of the first malls ever made in America. Right. And which is in a whole big accomplishment in and of itself. But, so he just gets this great setting. I love that, being an epic, it is this film that, takes you on kind of like this human journey. When the opening is incredible. You're starting off with this really intense, just kind of like dun, 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 as we're going through all the newscasts and everything, which, by the way, I think many people have referenced frequently through the last year or two. I often like to talk about the eye patch guy in that opening scene who's like, idiots. Like, it just kind of feels like the world today. But it's just a really great movie. It's just the amount of work that goes into it. I think it's a zombie masterpiece. And you mentioned Savini's work. Savini goes all out in that film. I mean, you lose track at a certain point of how many zombies he's having to kill off in that. I mean, I think the one knock against it, which really isn't, really much of anything, is just the fact that the zombies maybe look a little goofy at times. I think there was an issue with the makeup that they had that kind of made them look a little more Smurfy, But but other than that, it's an amazing movie. So.
I think the the kind of grayish makeup when the blood spatters on him looks really cool in the movie. It gives it a nice colorization. It has a colorization to it that's so unique to the movie that it is. So 70s.
Yeah,
I love it.
It does, and see, that's the thing is like the knock on it is it might look kind of goofy, but it also has sort of a comic book kind of vibe to it, which I think is really cool, and you don't see that often in these kind of films. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
Well,
Andres?
all I'll just say, a zombie movie that has a biker getting killed while he's getting his blood pressure taken. S tier all the way, baby. There we go. Mark, take it away.
I can't follow that. George is the mic drop.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, man.
For real.
Yep. Well,
and it has. I just want to mention it has a line that stuck with me for a long time as far as zombie stuff goes. When Roger, the cop, is about to turn and he's about to die, and he knows he's about to die, and he just goes, "I'm gonna try not to come back." Like that's a really haunting kind of line. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna try not to come back as a zombie. Like what that process must be when you do turn. Like that stuck with me for a long time. Like kudos to George for thinking of stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the time here, so I think that it's time to start shooting for some S tier picks. So I'm gonna go with one that I was a little late to the party on, but I want to go with The Omen. So I want to see if I can find the poster here. If anyone sees it, oh, here it is. Okay, perfect. So I just watched this for the very first time actually this morning, and this movie blew me away. Like it is just really, really creepy. I mean, just seeing Gregory Peck in there with like a really like awesome performance, like going from playing Atticus Finch into Kill a Mockingbird, then like coming over to The Omen, like he's just a powerhouse actor, and like the whole story of Damien, just like the way that they portrayed it, of him being the son of the devil, and then like all the different elements of they have like people trying to protect him, and like dogs that keep following him everywhere, and just like trying to piece together the mystery of like he doesn't believe it at first, but then he starts to buy in the more crazy and crazier things keep happening to him. So yeah, like I thought that it was great. And has a great soundtrack too. Like the score is like really, really good. So yeah, I'm gonna give an S tier for The Omen. So see what you guys think, Matt.
I completely agree. The Omen's actually one of my favorite movies. It's one of the kind of earlier ones that I caught as a kid getting into horror. And the thing about Gregory Peck that's interesting is that I think that him being involved in the film just kind of speaks to how good the script is. Because if I recall correctly, Peck did not consider the film to be a horror film. He considered it. I don't remember exactly what he called it, a thriller or something like that. But he was so he wasn't the kind of actor who did movies like this typically. But the script is so good that it was something he wanted to do, and you can see why. I mean, his performance is incredible. He's playing this tortured guy who is having to lie to his wife about their child from the beginning, and then you're kind of putting him through all this turmoil of like, well, what do I do when he starts to believe that the kid could be Satan? And I love him. It's so tragic when you have those moments where he's like, he's a child, like he's struggling internally with what he's going to do about the situation. But all that being said, I also just think it's a really effective film. I consider this, like I said with When a Stranger Calls, with the opening to be one of the best. I think that The Omen has one of the best finales, one of the best third acts, because that entire sequence with Gregory Peck going into the house and facing down the dog, facing down the maid, or not the maid, the housekeeper, Damien's whatever, going through all of that, going to the church, like it all just it's so intense and frightening. And Donner just nails the hell out of his direction with this movie. I mean, I could continue on just ranting about all the good things about it. It's nearly a perfect film to me, and I think that it's sad that there were so many kind of accidents going on during that kind of, gave it that ridiculous reputation of being cursed. Because I mean, the movie itself is incredible. So,
Yeah. Andres, what do you think?
This movie and this script is so perfect that when they remade it, they dare not change one single aspect about this script. So that should speak very much to how great the story is and how amazing Dick Donner's freaking direction was all the way through, and how much of a hack John Moore is. So absolutely S tier, guys. And also it has probably one of the best final shots in any horror film as well too, with Damien just looking straight in the camera and something being very off when he smiles, or like when he has that little sliver of a smile. But absolutely, you could argue that there's more of a family drama more than anything else, but it does have that supernatural base to it, and it's freaking fantastic. And then also shout out to David Warner, who anytime he appears in anything just makes me smile. So yeah, absolutely S tier for me.
And not to mention sorry to interrupt, one of the best kills in horror, I think, with with the sheet of glass and just replaying it over and over and over and over again. That
decapitated.
It's a precursor to like Final Destination and that whole franchise. It just perfect.
Well, Mark, what do you think?
I'm gonna be the small contrarian and give it just an A. I enjoy the film, but it never really scared me. And even though it's trying to delve into a taboo area about can you kill a child, I feel like it stacks the deck so hard that it's a foregone conclusion you got to kill the child. I mean, I believe that Peck's character is suffering through it, but I as the viewer don't have any doubts in my mind as to whether he's going to go through with it. So, and I feel like that takes away some of the suspense.
Well, Austin, what do you think?
Well, if Mark was slightly a contrarian, I'm going to be a big time contrarian. I don't like The Omen. I think the movie's dull. I think it's look. I bought the Scream Factory set. I was excited to put it back on. Hadn't seen it in a long, long time. I fell asleep 3 times trying to rewatch this damn movie. I thought it was super dull, super boring. I think Damien. Here's the thing. He's creepy, but he's creepy from the beginning. Like there's no real build up to it. He's evil already, and he's evil right there. I don't know what it was. It just didn't click for me when I tried to rewatch it. I'm not going to be like it's the worst movie ever or anything like that, because I know it's not. The Jerry Goldsmith score was good. Donner's direction is good, but to me, it's like a C level for me. I think it's a little bit overhyped, and I think it's been overhyped over the years. Just me personally.
Yeah. That by comparison, it's not a particularly good movie either. But I think at least Damien Omen 2 has this intriguing sort of element of, okay, he's a tweener now, and like he's about to realize the full brunt of his inheritance, and you feel like he could be swung in another direction if someone had the forcefulness to try and go up against all of the satanic forces that are protecting him. This one, it's such a stacked deck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put it up there with Dawn of the Dead and Body Snatchers and Halloween. I don't put it up with that, like, at all.
Yeah.
At all. I don't.
3 S's and then an A and a C, so maybe it goes like low A. I feel like because we had at least 3.
No, I mean you had 3 S's, so it skirts the line of it. It at least goes to the top of A because it had 3 S's. It had way more. It had more S votes than anything in the A. So I think it'd be perfect for like an honorable mention. Like when we get to the end, I think there's still better movies on the list than The Omen. That's still down there. Some obvious ones.
But with that, do you want to throw it to the speed round now?
Yeah, so it's not really like a
Okay.
speed round per se. Here's what
Kinda.
we do. We got a new way of
Yeah.
doing this. So we
The
call it
Hail
kind of our
Mary
Hail
round,
Mary
yeah.
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we do is we go around the
There's still a
horn
lot of good
and
ones.
yeah, if you have movies you think on the list that are either S or A tier, just list them real quick. You know, give me 3, 4, 5 movies, whatever they are. Not super long explanations. Just give us a little shout out for this, that, and the other. That everybody will do that. And if there's crossover, if I hear the same movie mentioned, several times, we'll go back and do a quick grading of those movies. Does that make sense? Like if I hear, what I think I'm going to hear with like everybody nominating The Exorcist, we'll go back and rate The Exorcist. You know what I mean? Something like that. So,
between the hours of this establishment and my battery power, you were kind enough to let me get my 2 in early. So I think this is where I have to bid my leave.
Okay.
But this is always a tremendous pleasure and privilege, and can't wait to see y'all at the end of October for the big final showdown.
The finale. Yeah, please. Any plugs you got? Anything you want to plug, or where we can find you, Mark? Please.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at THE_HOYK. My personal blog is projectorhasbeendrinking.blogspot.com. Among other things, I haven't updated in a while, but I've got some very ambitious essays I'm proud of, including the comparing the history of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to the very controversial 70s porn film Hot Summer in the City, and a history of the very underrated actress Rainbow Harvest, the star of the 90s horror film Mirror Mirror, and how she did her best work with female directors, including the director of Mirror Mirror, Marina Sargenti.
Nice.
And I still write for the New Beverly Cinemas blog, and that is thenewbev.com/blog. I recently did a couple of articles on William Smith and on the movie Walking the Edge with Robert Forster, and I'll have a new article coming up in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Mark. And yeah, we'll let you know that we're thinking about maybe around the 26th for the championship episode, but I'll reach out to you with more details.
Okay.
Basically, the Tuesday before Halloween is what we're looking at for our big grand finale, where we're going to put the top 10 from each of the decades into one big battle royale and see who comes out on top, which is going to be crazy tough.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Stay safe, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Mark's awesome. He's been on every one of these shows. He's been our anchor. He's amazing. We love Mark, and he's been we've almost built the show, the scheduling of the shows kind of around him, because he's so great and he's so knowledgeable, and he's a hero of mine. He's the movie geek on Beat the Geeks. I love him. He's awesome. Like, I'm so yeah, he's awesome. So anyways, so if everybody kind of understands the concept of what we're doing, like S's and A's, shooting high. If there's anything on the list you think deserves to be up there, just shout them out. It can be more than one. You can name 4 or 5, so, whatever. Just list them out, and then I'll go back and we'll vote on the crossovers. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
Okay. The Exorcist, obviously, as an S. The Brood, I think, should be an S. Carrie's an S. I would love to say Houseu is an S. I'm going to say an A, though, but I think that movie is brilliant, actually, for as ridiculous as it is. Jaws, obviously, S. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, S. I'll give somebody else a chance to speak, but
sure.
Yeah. Well, Andres, what do you want to nominate?
How many do we get to nominate as again?
You can nominate as many as you want. I'll just go with the ones that had crossover. I mean, you can name whatever, if you think there's multiple S tiers on there.
All right, I'm going to speed round it. Jaws, absolute S.
Yeah.
Carrie, S. The Exorcist, fucking S, yes. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course that's an S. and whatever next thing Austin says. Go.
Yeah.
Mine are literally the same as yours. Exorcist, Jaws, Texas, Carrie. Same four.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know Jordan doesn't agree with one of those, but maybe we'll outvote him. We'll see.
Yeah, right. We'll have a little debate on one when it comes up, but I picked are pretty similar. The Exorcist S, Jaws S, Carrie I would say A for me. Let's see, The Brood I'd say A probably, and then I'm gonna give some love to The Hills Have Eyes. I'm gonna give it an A, so that'll be mine.
Remake's better.
I agree.
Yeah.
Actually,
I do like the remake quite a bit.
Remake's
Although
better.
although the actor, I forget what his name is in the original. God, I'm blanking on his name, but he's so
Michael
iconic.
Berryman.
Yeah, Michael Berryman.
Oh,
yeah, so iconic.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so
Got a few
all right,
crossovers.
I've got 5. So 5 we had crossover things for. So, but we'll do them kind of quickly. Maybe 30 seconds on your explanation. We'll just do this quickly so we can wrap the show up. So we'll all vote on The Exorcist. So I know you probably already said it. We'll just say it again. So we'll start with Matt. We'll just kind of go up the line each time. So Matt, for The Exorcist.
Split pea soup, iconic.
Split pea soup. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
No, it's one of the most frightening films ever made for a reason. It's just everything about it is horrifying. A little girl doing what she does with a cross to herself. It's just there are images of this movie you never forget.
Yeah.
Andres.
Right on. Andres.
I mean, masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. The Exorcist. Ellen Burstyn's amazing performance, Linda Blair's heartbreaking performance all the way through. Even when she's playing evil, you still feel like there is a radio signal coming in that's taking over this girl. And you just can't help but feel empathetic that there's someone just inside her, just like, oh my God, get this thing out of her. Pazuzu, one of the most indelible demons ever put on cinema. And yeah, it's ultimately one of the best horror movies ever made, and it's so masterfully done. So absolute S tier.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, every zombie movie wants to be Dawn of the Dead. Every shark movie wants to be Jaws. Every exorcism or possession movie wants to be The Exorcist. Exorcist is S tier for that reason.
Yep.
It's the gold standard.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say S tier all the way. I mean, I will say that they went in with this kind of like attitude. Where I'm like me and a buddy of mine watched it, and we're like, The Exorcist isn't gonna scare us. We're gonna be like braver than that, and like it really kind of didn't scare me until I saw Pazuzu, and that's the thing that actually scared me. Like, so yeah, I'm gonna go S tier.
I like all the little subtle things they do, like that, sort of like in that Fight Club did, where that you see the flashes of Regan like on the screen real quick throughout the movie, and it's like that was really ahead of its time. Like for the time, like that was crazy.
Oh,
just little things you forget about that. Yeah. All right. So next is Jaws. This might be pretty unanimous as well. So, Matt.
I mean, come on, Jaws. Steven Spielberg, Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss. I mean, it's the movie that made the blockbuster. The blockbuster didn't exist before Jaws.
Exactly.
It wasn't supposed to be this gangbusters movie that it was, but it captured the psyche of the country and the world, and it's been attempted to be replicated ever since, and no one has ever even come close. So it's one of those lightning in a bottle movies where even though so many things went wrong, it all worked out. Like the fact that the shark didn't work and that actually ended up working to the benefit of the movie, that you don't really see it very often. So it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of Spielberg's best, if not his best. So
Yep.
Well, hey, you, my wee Spanish ladies.
Very well, do.
Just
Sharks eyes like a dog.
just put it all the way up to the top. Put it all the way up to the top.
It's right up there with Alien.
Top.
Yeah, it's kind of up there with Alien.
Yeah,
Like,
kind of up there with Alien, or
yeah,
is it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, we'll say that I kind of have a little more of a hot take. I think it belongs in the S tier, but for me, it's more of a bottom S tier for me. That's just my take on it. So slightly controversial, but not too bad. So
At least it's in the S tier.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll take what I can get.
Well, here comes the controversy. All right, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's roll it.
S tier. S tier. All right. So
Yeah.
one quick thing about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is I find this movie fascinating for the sole fact that it is so in your face and vicious and grotesque and all of the any word you want to use to describe it like that. It is so much of that at the time audiences thought that they were watching one of the goriest movies they'd ever seen in their lives. And there's actually very little blood in the movie. You know, it was so psychologically effective that it convinced people that they were seeing a much more grotesque film than they actually were. And that's not to say that thematically and visually you're not seeing some pretty awful stuff, but they thought that they were seeing something even more horrific than what was on screen.
Find the
And
poster.
I just think that for that matter alone, it makes it one of the scariest films of all time. So
Yeah. No, Toby Hooper infamously said that he shot this film to be a PG rated film. And that did not go well with the MPAA.
Yeah, that was not going to happen, Toby.
Yeah, no. To quote one of my favorite moments of the movie, it's really good. It's really good. All right, really good. S tier for me.
Austin?
Texas Chainsaw is awesome. The sound design is amazing. The dark humor is awesome in the movie. That's something I've come to appreciate over time. I mean, just the stuff with like the cook, where he just out of nowhere, like he'll just be beating on Leatherface with a broom. Just get the hell in there, get out of there. What are you doing? Ooh. And you know, the grandpa attempting to hit her with the hammer, just missing over and over again, just falling. Like there's all these things where he said it was a comedy. It wasn't, but like. You know, what he did with the sequel was way more of a comedy, in my opinion. But I do appreciate all that stuff. Yeah, the sound of the chainsaw is iconic, man. He's the one who made that. There's a reason I go to Halloween Horror Nights, and there's always a section with dudes with chainsaws running around, just coming up, scaring people from behind with just the noise. Like he made that noise what it is. So now, Jordan, tell us why it's the worst horror movie of all time.
Oh, dear.
So
choose your words carefully.
Carefully.
I saw this movie this past week for the first time, and like I hated it. Like for me, like it had bad dialogue. It like didn't like make any sense to me. And it looked like something that was just filmed out in someone's garage, like some kind of weird raw footage. That like I could just
That's the point. But continue. That's the point. But continue.
Well, like I could just go out with my brothers and I could make the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in my garage, and like
no, you couldn't.
Be like just as good, just as high quality, just as like because it. There's like literally no quality to it. Like there's just bad dialogue. They make stupid decisions, stupid choices through the whole movie, and it's like the whole thing just really doesn't really make any sense to me. Like I just don't really understand it. There's just weird kind of close-up scenes of like just the camera moving around, all shaky cam, and like it's not really meant to be raw footage. It's meant to be like an actual like a movie that's not raw footage, but it looks like that. And it's like that wasn't even the purpose. I understand that it had a really low budget, but at the same time, I just did not really understand why I would want to ever go back to watch this movie ever again. Like I would give it an F tier. I thought it was like one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Like it was just so bad. I just don't really understand. There wasn't anything entertaining about it. There wasn't anything that drew me in. Like nothing. So yeah, I just can't. It was
Yeah,
bad.
and yet about a year from now, you'll pull out the DVD and you'll watch it again because it'll get under your skin and you'll want to watch it. See, because you know what, Jordan, I kind of thought the same thing when the first time I saw it, probably 15 years ago. I didn't like it because you know why? It made me feel uncomfortable and I looked cheap and it looked bad. Yet every time over the last 15 years, about once a year, I go back to it and I watch it because I'm fascinated by it. Because I'm just so fascinated by the way it looks and the way it's shot.
Uncomfortable,
like all the stuff.
Not in a
It's
scared
like
way though. It was just like
it makes you want to take a shower.
I'm like this is.
I mean,
we're more like
go ahead.
Like like this is like a really stupid, dumb movie. I don't understand what I'm even watching or what's even happening. They're just random people being pulled into places that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm like, yeah, I just don't get it.
Well, it's been very fun, guys. So I will see you guys later.
I'm just gonna say I don't know you, Jordan. You seem like a really nice guy. I don't think you could make this movie though, man.
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, here's the thing. Like, you know, I understand if you're maybe watching it as a modern audience and it's not something that you caught at a more impressionable age. Maybe I can sort of see why you go back and revisit it and it feels dated and all that kind of stuff. I just think that
very dated.
First of all, the look of it, I mean, that's part of the effect is that it looks so dirty and grimy and just, you know, it's like the perfect grindhouse film in a sense, because it does feel like, you know, sort of something that you might have found in someone's basement and you're like, what the fuck is this? You know?
Yeah.
Right. But as far as, you know, you're kind of mentioning the sort of nonsensicalness of it. I would argue that that's actually part of the point is that, you know, the whole movie is just pure madness. I mean, that's really what it is. Like, that's the fascinating part about it is that it's all just complete and utter insanity. So like, you know, when Austin's mentioning the grandpa trying to hit the girl in the head with the hammer, it's silly and it's goofy on one hand, but it's also kind of terrifying in a sense because, you know, you're just in the midst of this complete insanity where this family is, you know, sitting around this old decrepit monster looking grandpa and like cheering as he's hitting this girl in the head with a hammer. Like it's just, I don't know. It's a completely delirious, just unsettling movie that, you know, like Austin said.
And look, as far as the way it's shot, they brought back the cinematographer Daniel Pearl from that movie for the remake because he shot it so well with such a limited budget. There's actually shots in that movie that are beautiful of the house, of the landscape, like that are gorgeous actually, that nobody just with a camcorder in their hands are going to be able to make it look that good. So that's why it doesn't look like it does, and it doesn't look cheap. It does and it doesn't. It's a very fine line.
And this speaks to the genius of Hooper. Is anytime a film feels so easy that you could have done it yourself, it usually means that they just did that good of a job. in my opinion, because it's such an effective film, but he makes it look easy, but it's not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to also even piggyback on sort of the art direction in this, it's absolutely brilliant. Even to the extent where you're talking about all the close-ups that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Hooper was so confident in his art direction in terms of showing you small things here and there, in terms of showing you the freaking lamps that are made of human flesh, and in terms of also showing you, oh, hey, what's this thing that's on the floor? Oh, extreme close-up, it's a freaking tooth, and you buy it. You absolutely buy it.
And the little things, there's other little things, like instead of a door that he swings open to hit the guy with it, it's the slamming side door. Like those even little things that are just that more effective than him just like opening up a swing door. Like it's like a sliding door. Like just little things about that movie that are just that much more effective. Like that's all.
Cut together with like the sounds of pigs squealing and stuff like that in that moment. It's so unsettling.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and then also, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say honestly, like it made me kind of question like all cinema pre 1980s. I was just like, man, maybe I'm just not really like a fan of older movies. Maybe I just live in the modern world. But then I had to think twice about it. I'm like, no, there's like like tons and tons of good movies pre-1980s,
but I also told him it was funny
like,
how there's people who hate the original who love the sequel though, because it's like full blown over the top comedy craziness, just nuttiness. But the people who usually love the original hate this. But they hate the sequel. You know what I mean? It's kind of like flip flop. I have an appreciation for both, but but I had to grow my appreciation for the second one when I put myself in the mindset. But I thought that actually, if he watches Texas Chainsaw 2, it might be more up his alley, because it's almost like Gremlins 1 and 2. It's almost like a parody of the first one. Like it's so silly and over the top and like very comedic, and it looks a lot more polished, because he had a bigger budget from Canon. Yeah. So I actually told him he should probably watch the sequel, and it might be more up his alley. So yeah,
I would agree with that. You might like the sequel better. I think that there are scares that are set up a lot better in the sequel as well that might be more effective.
The lights on scare is one of the best jump scares ever in the sequel.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. I won't spoil where it is in the movie, but it's great.
Or also even just what's his name? Tin Head.
Chop Top. Chop Top.
Yeah, there you go. Chop Top. Like him with the coat hanger, literally scratching himself and eating bits and pieces. Of that. It's
it's gross.
Yeah. Underrated sequel, I would say.
Anyways, look,
I'm still open to watching the rest.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it not being in the S tier, but it needs to at least be in the honorable mentions. It needs to be in those three.
Put in the A.
It needs to be in those three. It needs to be in those honorable mentions because it has to be on the list.
Because I understand why people like it. It's just kind of really not for me, because like it's like something that looked like it was about to be too gory for me, because I don't really like over the top blood and gore. But then it really wasn't. So I'm like, if you're gonna be gory, then be gory, like go all out. But if you're gonna,
but that's the brilliance. It's what you don't see that your brain tricks you into think you see. Really. He goes to hang her on the hook, and you don't see her. You don't see her hanging on the hook. You never see the penetration of the hook. You just see her about to be hung, and then it cuts to her on the thing. Like you never, but your brain tricks you into thinking you saw this gory scene where she got hung on a hook, and she doesn't. Like it's genius.
I think it was. I want to say it was Stephen King who said this, but I could be wrong. But I want to say it was King who said that the scariest thing is always what you think is behind the door and not what's actually behind the door. You know, so like you can imagine the most hideous, grotesque monster possible, and nothing that you actually see will ever compare to what your brain is creating for you. So it's why I agree. Yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is so effective for that, because he could show you a close-up of that hook going into her back, and you might cringe and be grossed out, but there's something that's so much more troubling about what your mind itself is kind of creating and making you feel, because you're imagining for yourself what's happening. So
true.
No.
Well, I'm okay with it being in the honorable mention, so like we could throw it in the A tier and give it,
because we have a top 10 plus 3 honorable mentions from the A tier. I think it needs to at least be honorable mention.
Higher.
They put it
at least.
We put it
higher
above The Omen. Well, we all want it higher, but it is what it is.
I'm like 5 seconds away from calling Collins, just be like, "Hey, come on board so we can squeeze this into A."
I haven't shown I'm actually wearing the damn shirt right now.
Yeah.
But
if you guys can find one you want to replace in the S tier, I mean, I'd be all right.
Shivers.
With
it's better than Shivers.
Yeah.
Oh, now that Mark's done.
Better than Shivers.
I love Shivers, but I would replace Shivers with Texas Chainsaw.
Shivers is silly.
But
we also have.
I like it.
I'm fine with that.
See, and then we got to decide where Carrie goes, because I think Carrie's like an A plus. Like I think it's perfect honorable mention. I don't think it's quite S tier, but I think it's really, really good. Yeah. But we'll go around on Carrie real quick. I think it carries like a perfect A plus, like honorable mention, because it's like probably the best King adaptation. I just think it takes a while to get where it goes, but it's still really good.
But
Andres and Matt, where would you guys put it?
I guess we'll start. To me, it's an S tier film, but it's because, first of all, I'm a big Brian De Palma fan, and I think that his direction in this is really incredible. I mean, when you consider the scene and just discovering the bucket in the end, it's drawn out, it's suspenseful. You know that something horrible is about to happen, and he drags it out for as long as possible. But I also just think that Sissy Spacek just is phenomenal in the role. Like she brings so much tragedy to that character, And I will speak honestly, like as a kid who was bullied, Carrie really kind of spoke to me. And why I like it is that a lot of times in horror, you do have these kind of like bullied person revenge stories, but where they so often go wrong is that the bullied character is kind of turned into like this, malicious villain who is going around, killing people because they played like a practical joke on them one time, right? And it just never really sits right. I feel like it's the wrong message when you're talking about bullying in the real world. So I've always really loved Carrie because Carrie's a story about this girl who is, trying and trying and trying to fit in and just, just be like a normal girl and get out from under the umbrella of her mother's like insane fanatical religion ideology, right? And she's trying so hard to be normal, and it's just this kind of epic tragedy of the fact that she just gets pushed finally too far and really just can't even help what happens. It just kind of comes out, and I don't know. It's just full of all this iconic imagery that I love. Carrie walking down the stage with all the fire burning around them, and the cast is great, and I think it's got a really powerful ending with the final showdown between her and her mother, and so I don't know. It's one that's always stuck with me. I think it's a phenomenal movie, but I can also see why, when compared to the others we have, maybe it wouldn't top any of them. But to me, it's an S tier film. So
okay.
Yeah,
fair enough. No, I really like it. I give it an A+. Like I love Carrie.
Oh yeah,
Carrie's great.
Sure.
Carrie's great.
I would give it an S tier ranking as well too, for just not only what it does with the story, but also what it did with the editing of the film as well. Where when she finally lets go of all her powers, they do a brilliant thing where not only do they show like one side of everything that's going on right there, but they have the frames within frames of all the stuff that she's reacting to, like shutting the doors, locking everything up, all in unison while you are watching her reaction. And De Palma has said that he regrets doing that, but I feel that was something that holds up even to today. And I think it was an indelible, amazing choice. Dare I say, Matt, it's an immaculate edited film.
Had to do that. We had a friend that would always say that.
Oh yeah,
It's immaculate.
Immaculate. But like I want to give it an S tier, but I just don't know that would put it above anything that's in the S tier. That's
I wouldn't put it above anything in there,
like
honestly. Yeah.
Put it right at
the top of A tier. And it'll make see, here's the thing, Matt. We put the top 10 plus the 3 honorable mentions in a poll tomorrow in Shimoda Friends and Families, so our Facebook group. So they all make the poll. So I mean, Carrie will be on there, and then you can show it some love, but yeah, and then the only other one I guess that got some crossover was the Brood. Was the Brood. I haven't seen the Brood, so I'll let you guys hash that one out. But I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Okay, I was shouting emphatically about that one. So the Brood's actually, when it comes to Cronenberg, a lot of people's favorites are either Videodrome or Scanners or The Fly, which all amazing movies. But the Brood, I've always it's actually started to come around and be my favorite Cronenberg movie, and I think it's because it's another one of those just like really kind of sort of tragic films about this couple that's been torn apart through the wife's mental health issues, and I just love the concept of I guess don't really want to spoil it, but I love the concept of just kind of how that anger and that tragedy sort of manifests into a very real threat between them. And I don't know, it's another one of those movies that just feels like no one else could ever do what Cronenberg does with it. And it's terrifying because you have all these kind of little kids in hoods running around killing people, and they're super vicious and monstrous, and and they're doing things that like make you flinch and cringe, and I don't know, it's a really intelligent film to me, and like more so than most of his work, and that says a lot because Cronenberg is always brilliant. But yeah, it's kind of in the Starbucks. I don't want to spoil anything with it, but I don't know. I just think it's an amazing movie. So I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about it.
I will say I absolutely love The Brood as well, but this film made me not want to have kids.
Well, that's the point.
And that's the point. So
Yeah.
there's a certain thing to be said when a movie can make you change your entire life or lifestyle choices. So that's I can't say enough great things about The Brood. I love The Brood. So there you go.
Yeah, like, well, for me, like, I'd give it an A tier for sure, because recently I've become a pretty huge Cronenberg fan. Like, I started with The Fly, but then I went over to like Videodrome and Scanners and stuff like that. But then like the Brood's really just like batshit crazy, just like and it's just like it's his style, and it's like nobody else can really do it. There's only one Cronenberg out there that can do what he does, and like just like it's like a perfect kind of movie of like like an obsessed kind of like kind of doctor doing these insane experiments on this guy's wife, the mentally ill wife, and so yeah, like it's just really kind of unnerving to watch, but like I think that that's really solid, so I give it an A.
Yeah, not to mention Oliver Reed is just like A+ in it, as he always was. But
so it goes up there in the A tier, and we'll play. And now we'll kind of play around with the rankings in the S tier and the top of the A tier. So we'll kind of play around with these individually a little bit and kind of see where we're at. So who does everybody think is the number one? Maybe we'll figure that out real quick. So we'll go up the list, and what does everybody think is the number one out of those A tiers? So Matt, what would be your number one?
Alien.
Andres?
Jaws.
See, we may be all over the place. Body Snatchers for me.
Yeah, for me, I'd say Halloween. So.
Oh, wow. So it's a little bit. Well, maybe those four go right next to each other. Alien, Halloween, Body Snatchers, Jaws as the top four. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll say that, like, I'd actually be okay having Alien number one for me. Like, that's like
I'd be okay with that. I love Alien. I love
number
Alien.
two.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
At the end of the day, these are all great movies.
Oh, they're all great. Yeah. And then I would put Dawn of the Dead. I would put Dawn of the Dead above like Phantasm and Suspiria, but for me personally, same with Exorcist.
Same.
I'd be okay with that.
But I'm okay with Black Christmas being at like 6 or 7 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exorcist needs to be above Black Christmas, I think. At least a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I would agree with that too.
Yeah, we could do that. And then, like, I've never seen Suspiria, so I can't really comment on it. But like, I don't know if Phantasm would move up or.
Phantasm's like number 10 for me. It's like a perfect number 10 because it's like really good, but I don't think it's on the level of Texas Chainsaw or Dawn of the Dead or anything like that. But I think it's really solid.
Yeah,
like just because you guys love the Texas,
Phantasm would be last for me.
But Texas Chainsaw can be number 10 because Jordan's not big on it, so I'm fine with that. And then have Phantasm be number 9.
Higher.
Well, for you guys, I'd be okay moving it maybe just below Dawn of the Dead. I mean, I'd be fine with that. You can bump it up a little bit. So yeah.
No, that looks pretty good to me.
Understand why people like it, so I'll say that.
Yeah. That 10 looks pretty good. But as far as the 3, I think Carrie's definitely like a strong honorable mention. And then I'm kind of up in the, although I think Shivers,
Omen.
Well, I would leave it to you guys as far as like, I think you should have one Cronenberg. So it'd probably either be Shivers or Brood. And I'll probably leave that to you guys. Would you put Shivers or Brood on
me? I would say the Brood.
Okay.
I'd say the Brood too, but also though, like kind of for Mark's vote though, I don't know if we should leave Shivers. I don't know.
Maybe.
So,
pretty high on it.
I don't know if any of Mark's are going to make it up there.
Yeah, right.
No, Suspiria is still pretty up there.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, Suspiria's high. Yeah, that was his.
Yeah, but I'd go with the Brood, I think.
I if point a gun in my head, it'd be the Brood.
Yeah, I think maybe like.
And the Omen is an honorable mention. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
I don't even say
because I'm not big on the Omen, but I understand it. I would put Carrie above the Omen, but that's just.
I would too.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with it. Yeah, I mean, that's
cool.
Fine with me. Yeah, that looks good. That looks like a solid.
That looks good to me.
And honorable.
Excellent. Good job,
Yeah.
Everybody. Well, I'll
Yeah,
recap it real quick. Well, I do my recap real quick. Sorry, we do our recap for anybody just listening.
Well, Austin as the co-host kind of break it down. Yeah.
All right. So at number 1 for our best 70s horror films of all time, we got Ridley Scott's Alien. Number 2, we got John Carpenter's Halloween. Number 3, Philip Kaufman's adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Number 4, the quintessential blockbuster that is Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Number 5, we got William Friedkin's The Exorcist. Number 6, we've got Bob Clark's other Christmas movie with Black Christmas. And number 7, we've got George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Number 8, we got the late great Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Number 9, Dario Argento's Suspiria. Number 10, Don Cascarelli's Phantasm. And at number 11, we've got Brian De Palma's Carrie. And number 12, the late great Richard Donner with The Omen. And number 13, we've got The Brood from David Cronenberg.
Yeah, all right, guys. That's
an eclectic list of that's a who's who of horror directors too, as far as that 13 right there. Like that's a who's who.
The 70s was amazing.
Of things, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I was thinking when we do our championship round, I was like, I don't know how well the 70s are going to stack up, but actually,
I think they'll do pretty well.
They're going to do great. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 70s is where a lot of our favorite directors in the 80s were just killing it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, and also the 70s really birthed a lot of directors that we would probably say have still not been replaced to this day. Like we haven't still found a replacement for Ridley Scott. We haven't found a replacement for freaking John Carpenter or Steven Spielberg or William William Friedkin. I was about to say William Beatty.
George Romero.
George Romero, in the zombie genre.
Tobe
Hooper. Who's done it better? Tobe Hooper.
Dario Argento. There you go.
Yeah, seriously.
That's a great list.
Some great filmmakers. So yeah, but
excellent.
But yeah, that'll do it for us tonight. So we'll just have that championship round coming up, probably the Tuesday before Halloween, and then also if anyone's watching it, if you want to vote for your favorite horror movie, you can find the poll tomorrow, probably about midday, over in the Shoutout Friends and Family group that we run over on Facebook. So the poll will be there. You can let us know if we got it right. You can scream at us if we got some wrong or if we missed any of your favoriits. So yeah.
And Jordan Anderson is the one who said Texas Chainsaw is an F. So let him know in the comments.
Yeah.
And why he's wrong.
You can blame me. If anyone agrees with me, that movie's weird.
So wrong.
Yeah.
Sure. It's all good, man. Films are subjective. It's not. I told him, and I even told him to private. I was like, I don't agree, but I understand. Like, it's not everything's going to be for everybody. I get it, and he's going to have a more modern aesthetic. He's coming to a lot of these movies now, which, again, if you came to him maybe earlier in your life, they made an impression on you and kind of stuck with you, a lot of that stuff. He's kind of the same way, not as harsh, but the same way with like Evil Dead 2. But again, I took a while to come around on Evil Dead 2. He likes Army of Darkness a lot more, something a little more fun and kind of lighthearted and comedic, which is why I said Texas Chainsaw 2 might be up your alley, because it's a little more lighthearted and silly. So you might like it. Hey, man, that's cool.
Like you said,
it's all different.
Film subjective. It's someone could tell me Alien's the worst movie they've ever seen, and it's like, all right, that's not my opinion, but it's yours, and like everything is valid. There's no right or wrong when it comes.
But I'm always fascinated as to. It's just like, I'm fine with that. Just tell me why. Like, give me a reason. Don't just say it was a piece of shit and I hated it. Like, tell me why. Like, let's get into it. Like what didn't you like? What did you like?
Yeah, and
give me some criticism.
If there's a discussion to be had.
If there's a discussion, if you don't just dismiss it as whatever, like, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it. Let's understand it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the best part of film discussion. Like we can all sit around here and go, oh yeah, Alien's a masterpiece, and we don't really have any sort of critical analysis together of it, other than just we love it. But it's always those conversations where, to me, one of the favorite parts of tonight was talking about why we think Texas Chainsaw Massacre works and why Jordan doesn't. It's because you get different viewpoints, and I just always think that's a fun thing to do. So,
I will say one thing though. I did love about today's discussion that the first film ended up being number one, stayed number one all the way through.
Yeah, stayed all the way through. Yeah, that was nice.
Set the bar high.
Yeah.
But I will say that this week I am going to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and 3 because coming up Friday. We're doing best
4. Watch 2 and 4. 2 and 4 is what I told you.
Yeah.
2 and 4. Because and I gave him the reasons. I said 2 because it's probably more up your alley, for the reasons I just said. 3 is kind of bland. It's whatever, but it does have Viggo Mortensen. It's interesting, but it's But I told him 4 is batshit crazy, and it's awesome. Like, it's awesome like that because it's like Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. It's nuts, and I told him why. Because I said there's literally a scene where Renee Zellweger has one of the worst line deliveries of all time when she's going, "There was a guy chasing me with a chainsaw, like a chainsaw. It was a chainsaw." Like, just as it's just horrible. Like, Matthew McConaughey knows exactly what movie he's in, and he loves it. So like, that's awesome, and like, it's so over the top and silly. Like, I told him you have to watch it because we'll talk about it. We're going to do a sequels episode coming up on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, McConaughey has a lot of insane roles. That is, to me, by far his most insane.
Yes.
Like, he completely is losing it in that movie, and it's
I'm
great.
so down for it. I'm ready. So, but we'll just go around the horn. You can tell us where we can find you if you have anything you want to promote. So we'll start with Matt. Where can we find you?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Killer Critics. That's usually where I'm at. You can check out my horror site, killerhorrorcritic.com. It used to be a lot more editorials and news and that kind of stuff. These days, it's mostly just reviews because I don't have as much time as I used to. But yeah, I'm not sure if anyone's watching this tomorrow or not, but I should have. Currently, I'm covering Fantastic Fest, so I should have a review on VHS 94 and the new.
Oh man, I love the VHS movies. Please tell me how it is.
You're going to love 94 VHS. Then you're going to love,
I love the VHS movies. VHS 2, that the segment with the cult is one of my favorite short films of all time. It's good.
Me too. That is the one that I remember the most from part 2. It's so goddamn good.
So good. So good.
94 is incredible. So I will just say right now, I'm not even going to attempt to say his name because I'm going to butcher it, but Timo, who did Made the Devil Take You, and I'm just going to stick with Made the Devil Take You because I can't remember the other one. But his segment in this is just absolutely bonkers. But no, 94 is great. I also have a review on the new Slumber Party Massacre remake, which is dropping tomorrow. So, but yeah, so you can check.
I didn't know there was a remake. That's news to me.
Yeah, it's very. It was very low key. You know, it was kind of. If I remember correctly, it's premiering on the Sci-Fi Channel, so it was produced by them as well as I believe Shout Factory. My tease for it will be that it has a bit of a Sci-Fi Channel vibe to it, but my response to that would be that the first 2 Slumber Party Massacres are themselves kind of fucking weird and bonkers, so it kind of fits right in with them. So, I think anyone who's a fan of the first 2 will appreciate this one. It's a lot of fun. It's gory, all that good stuff. So, but yeah, no, that's where you can find me. So that's it for me.
And I subscribed to your podcast on Stitcher today with your movie reviews.
How am I forgetting? I also have a podcast.
I was listening to your From Beyond episodes. I'm a big fan of that movie earlier today while I was driving around. So, it seems interesting. I'm going to catch up on some of your podcasts. You have a great podcast voice, sir. I'll say that.
Yes. As I've been told. I completely forgot. I'm spacing. I do a podcast with my wife, Chris. We have new episodes every week. Every month has a theme, and basically just kind of the theme of our show is that we both get a little bit tipsy and kind of dissect and argue over these movies and what we kind of think are all about. So it usually gets to some pretty kind of fun, weird stuff. This month's theme is the night Halloween came home, so we're just doing kind of like Halloween themed horror movies. And we will be talking about Halloween 2, which my hot take is I actually like a little bit better than the original, but
wow.
I'm not one of those rare opinionated people, so. But yeah, no, my podcast, Killer Horror Critic. You can check that on iTunes, Stitcher, most places you can get it. So
it's all right. I got your back. I do my research. I got your back. It's all good.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate
I'll plug what you don't.
Do the plug for you, right?
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Galaghost. You can also find me I contributed a couple of articles to Matt's site as well too. Always fun to just go on and talk about anything horror. I remember last thing I did was a retrospective review on Hollow Man, and then also a review on Resident Evil 3, the remake that came out last year.
Very thorough.
Oh yeah, that was my most anticipated of last year. I was just like, put that in my veins right now. But apart from that, you can also catch me on the Video Chronic Pop Culture Quizzes every now and again over on Video Drew's channel. And you can also find me on the FCL doing some movie trivia, and maybe hopefully soon you guys will see me back on there again on Twitch at Schmodown. I think it's Movie Trivia Schmodown on Twitch. So be on the lookout for that. Then also you can find me doing retrospective reviews on my buddy Steve and I's site, High Voltage Media, which we do a show called The Underrated Series, and one of the last episodes that we did was a retrospective on Predator 2, which I am super proud of. So go ahead and check that out.
All right,
awesome. Predator 2.
Predator 2 is awesome.
So good.
So good.
Awesome.
I rewatched
it. Jordan, if you say you hit it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, I actually like that one. So yeah, that one's awesome. Yeah.
No, Predator 2 has aged very well. It's like the epitome of bonkers 90s action. Like, it's so
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
So fun. Over the top 90s ridiculous action. It's so great.
I mean, look, it's got Bill Paxton in it. That's enough for me.
Yeah, it's Bill Paxton.
Exactly.
Great. And King Willie. You can't go wrong with King Willie. So yeah. But yeah, anyways, we're kicking off Scary Movie Month. The first is on Friday, and we're kicking it off here with our sister show, Tournament Fights, which I know Andres is going to be on an upcoming episode of Tournament Fights, which we're excited. It's a lot of fun. So basically, Matt, if I can pique your interest in our sister series, if you ever want to come on one, what we do is we take a March Madness bracket. So we take 64 items, movies, characters, whatever, the case may be. We throw them all in a March Madness bracket, but randomized, not seeded. So literally we throw them all in a randomized bracket, and we go round by round until we get a winner of whatever we're doing that particular thing. So this Friday, we're doing basically the title characters from horror movies and franchises. So like literally your Freddys, your Jasons, your Leatherfaces, even stuff like Leprechaun or the Killer Clowns from Outer Space, or Annie from Misery. Like we're just gonna throw all that kind of stuff in this bracket and see what happens. Because literally you could have Freddy versus Jason in the first round if it's randomized that way, and neither one of them makes the top 8, the Elite 8. So like anything could happen in tournament fights. We've had crazy stuff happen, based on the voting. So that's going to kick off our series. So I think that one's filled up, but we do have room on one later called we're going to do either series. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
It's like a slight correction. So actually this Friday we're going to be doing the best horror sequels. Will be Friday, and then Tuesday we'll be doing best title characters, and we do still have room on the title characters. It's a sequel.
I was just giving an example. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're doing the sequel one on Friday, which is basically that's one I've been wanting to do for a while. We're going to take all the Halloween sequels, all the Friday sequels, all the Nightmare sequels, all the Texas sequels, all the Final Destination sequels, et cetera, throw them all in the randomized bracket and see which sequel comes out on top. Like we're just going to have a lot of fun with that. So that one's going to be fun too. So, but I'm just intrigued because I think we had room on that one if you wanted to join. So, if anybody on here wants to join one of those,
So you're saying on Tuesday you're doing the characters that you have room for? So is that correct?
Yes.
So on Tuesday it'll be best horror characters, like a title character. So like each franchise gets like whatever the best character is.
Okay.
There'll be 64 of them in a bracket.
Yeah, it sounds like a total blast. Do you send me details on it? I might have to get back to you tomorrow because I'm currently covering Beyond Fest, Fantastic Fest, and Scream Fest. So I'm kind of like losing my mind a little bit with everything I'm doing. But so I don't know if I can fit it in. But if I can, I'll let you know tomorrow.
It's just we're going to be very horror centric in October, so we need horror fans, who know the differences between all these characters and movies and all these kind of things, as opposed to just randomly whatever. So the one we've got for Friday, I think Andres is on that one. We got Paige for Freddy and Richie Nemo, and so they at least know the difference between it was more of a thing of like, man, we need a panel that knows the difference between like Halloween 4 and Nightmare 5. You know what I mean? You know, like well, just knows the difference between the sequels, like can remember the difference between the sequels. Like Jordan's going to be the more casual fan on that one that has only seen some of them, but that's okay. But we needed people who like know the difference between, you know, Curse of Michael Myers and Friday the 13th: The New Blood. You know, like who can tell the difference?
There's a big difference between both of those.
Yes, right. So for example, yeah, exactly. So stuff like that. But Jordan can send you maybe some of the horror ones we're still open on. Maybe if you want to join in on any one of them, we'd love to have you.
I think you sent me a list of what you're doing. I don't remember if it said what was open or not, but anytime you're doing horror, anything related to horror, hit me up. I'm always glad to join if I can. So
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but then a couple other shows just to plug a few. We're actually doing it, and it is going to happen tomorrow. We've been putting it off a little bit, but we do a Saturday Night Live recap show, and we've been trying to put together a Norm Macdonald tribute episode because we want to do it right. We don't want to just rush into it. We're huge fans, but we're gonna try and do that tomorrow night, and then a couple other tier rankers and tournament fights that we have. We're actually doing one. Let's see, we're doing. So we have a spinoff series called Tournament Fights Battles, where we have 4 people each contribute 16 items, and then into the tournament, and then they all duke it out to see who comes out on top. So we're gonna do our favorite actors of all time. So we got that one coming up, and then we also have best 2000s comedies coming up, which is going to be stacked because like 2000 was the year for or was the decade for comedies. Like just
dude, I started putting together the rough draft list for that. I've got like 70 movies for that tier ranker. It's gonna be nuts. It's insane. Like how many great comedies there were. Yeah, it's stacked. So that one's gonna be tough.
Yeah, late 90s, early 2000s was the time.
But it was like prime comedy time. But then there's one other one we also have coming up, best movies with a serial killer. So that will include quite a few horror movies, but maybe someone that might not be considered horror movies. Maybe some action or dramas, in there. So yeah, that it's just a little.
You could put like Cobra or Nighthawks in there. They have serial killers in them.
Sure, yeah.
I fucking love Cobra.
Yeah,
but it could be. So we got to come up with.
It could be. Hey, I could put Con Air in that because Steve Buscemi is a serial killer in that movie.
Yeah,
Garland Green. I could put Con Air in the list. I just might do that. So yeah, that could be fun.
Oh my god!
But yeah, that's basically where you can find us. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun, guys. So we'll definitely be seeing you guys back here some more. So yeah, but for Matt, for Andres Turd Ferguson tonight.
That's not my name.
Not my name.
Turd Ferguson. It's my name.
Just notice you did that.
Yeah, right. For Austin, for Mark Edward Hoyk, I've been Jordan Movie Hero Anderson, and we will see you guys next time. Let's see. That's what I meant to hit. Come on,
We'll start. We'll see you next time.